The truth matters. You might not like Shaka, you might not like Keys, but do you like your enemy more than you hate us? Black people experience racism. White people experience discrimination sometimes, but never racism anytime. What I've been trying to do over the last 10 years now, I seen Speed do that version of that in like 1 month's time.
Millennials and above, they were like, who is this and why is everybody losing their minds? But they don't realize that this brilliant young man is actually the Michael Jackson of young people right now. Just in 1 month, the amount that we can do more than any single corporation or a conglomerate of corporations has done ever in history.
And he showed a little black boy being respected across the planet Earth. For what? For being himself. The little black boy with swagger that can travel around the world, and presidents and emperors and kings will greet him when he go there. For what reason? Because he streams his life as a young black man. If we're being honest, that is not a young man representing survival mode. It's mostly what these young black boys that's dying in these hoods in America wish they could live.
Right now in Africa, we don't have one passport, we don't have one currency, we don't have one language. Why is it that we've got to learn Arabic, we've got to learn English, we've got to learn languages outside of our normal genotype?
Oh, the color of Jesus don't matter. Well, then why would you change the color of his skin?
Right.
It matters if you're going to lie. I don't know if those same people will be Christians if they got to go then put a dark-skinned man in their church, and that's who they pray to.
Biochemically, we can't really tell the difference between pornography and actual sex. And when you're paying money to sleep with women, and sex is supposed to be spiritual, how are you telling the difference between this is an honest relationship and this is a business transaction?
We can't continue to operate on these old industrialized factory models and then try to tell people that cognitive behavior therapy is going to save them, and they need to be on time for their session when they're out of time with God. Hold that thought. Do not forget what you're about to say. When spiderwebs unite, they can tie up a lion. It's an ancient Ethiopian proverb, and it speaks towards the collective effort creates greater power. When I think about our current guest, I think about collective power and how essential it is so that we can get to a higher place. Current reality, people are afraid. They're afraid of what they don't know, the unknown, artificial intelligence. They're afraid of the rapid de-evolution of a population that IQ is slowly dampening every single year. The ability to read, literary skills are digressing, right? We have new artificial intelligence, agentic intelligence. All of these new infrastructures are popping up. Tech feudalism is on the rise. We have our first trillionaire. These companies that we talk about as companies and stock shares are actually empires. And they have so much untold power throughout the world. But there's also another side. There's a side of beauty. There's a side of art, right? There's a side of culture, right? There's a side to where humanity will never let anything win but God. And that side of humanity deserves to have light. There's technology that is dirty and there's technology that is clean. The clean technology is what humanity has always utilized. I look at culture as a clean technology. Writing, arts, especially when they're used in the purpose of liberation. I look at indigenous technologies and how they was able to create teepees to all different architectural structures, how they was able to tell when the wind was coming, the clocks that they've created in order to be in alignment with cosmic time. These were all different technologies, art, skills, crafts. Now technology has taken a toll on the planet. Therefore, the resource extraction is actually killing people. And those deaths are on the hands of all of us because we all utilize the benefits of that technological extraction. Unfortunately, these things could be done in a completely different way, but they're not. So somebody has to fight for the people. Somebody has to be on there on the ground, showing us the grimy reality of what's happening. So while we're sitting back, sipping our matchas, ordering our next Uber Eats, watching Netflix getting bigger and bigger and bigger, somebody is reminding us behind our gluttony and our convenience, there's a toll on humanity. And when I think of my current brother that I have on, he is always a constant reminder, sometimes insinuate to where even if you don't want to hear it, he's going to make sure that you find out about it, right? And I think that that's necessary because if nobody is the thorn in our side that reminds us, right, that the world is destroying our humanity, right, for the purpose of convenience, then we lose ourselves, but we also become willing participants in our own oppression. Because our true oppression is when we lose empathy, we lose humanity, we lose that ability to weave the webs that unite against the forces that oppress us, that are not good for us. And in this last era, or this late stage of capitalism, everything has become such a product that even our own lives are not real to us unless we can monetize them. I've seen this brother build schools in Africa. I've seen him bring the biggest celebrities in the world so that they can bring awareness to issues that most people try to go about their day and ignore. From the Congo, right, to issues that are happening in Ghana, all over Africa, and now he's in a completely different space as well, to where he is bringing some of the biggest streamers on the planet Earth to Africa, and a part of the team that has now just seen a new renaissance when it comes to the narratives that are being controlled by these great conglomerates, or just the historical laziness of a people not being intentional about how new media shapes the strategic imagination of a people. What I've seen recently this year, as somebody who has been traveling to Africa for the last 10 years, what I've been wanting to do for the last 10 years as a narrative, I seen I Show Speed do that in like a month. And then when you see stuff like that, you have to ask yourself, man, who the hell is behind this? Who is the team that is behind this? And I happen to know these brothers that are behind it, right? At least some of them. I'm sure that I Show Speed works with a lot of people, but when it comes to making sure that there's a level of curation, intentionality, your team matters more than anything. And so I was talking to him and I say, what is the next stage of humanity? How do we make this better? One of them is our collective power, that webbing that we have collectively as global entities. And then the other two is making sure that we can control the narratives. Who is behind the influence? Who is the prick on the side, making sure that those who have platforms are actually paying attention to things that matter? So I said, man, let me have a part 2 of a conversation I already had with a brother who has been a diasporian warrior, right, for things that most people don't care about until he shows them. He shows them the real, he shows them the truth. He gets on the ground, he's there with the students, he's teaching them, he's mentoring them. He's also all the way down from the darkest and deepest places in Congo, right? But then you might see him on BET getting an award. You understand me? You might see him with the biggest streamers in the world. And you might see him sitting across from the biggest thought leader in the world. I have none other than my brother Shaka Bars, man. Welcome back to High Level Conversations, man. How we feeling today, man?
Everything is nice. We're gonna do the Ghana one. Right. We're gonna do the Ghana one.
Yes, sir. You had cocoa butter on your hands. It slipped off. Like that cocoa butter that Speed was sliding into when he was in Ghana with all them sisters around him.
I mean, you gotta do it, man. You gotta do it. It's there to be used.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. First of all, welcome back to the show. It's been 2 years since we had you on. And when I do my intro,
4 years.
4 years. Man, time goes by faster than I think. But what is
2022?
Time? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, time is not real. It's just 3 cycles. You understand me? 4 cycles, rather. But having you on, man, I really appreciate what you do. You know, sometimes I might be going down my timeline and see some ass shaking, and then 3 seconds later, you understand me, they're reminding me of some great atrocity that's happening in the world that I need to be donating to. You understand me? And it'd be right there. You kind of like that Kanye West meme where it pop up and say, gotcha.
Right. I mean, you gotta the algorithm dictates that you gotta do that now. Yeah. You can't just speak life and speak truth to power. You have to capture people's attention. But it's like we've always said, you gotta mix the medicine in with the food, you know.
Yeah. All right, so let me ask you this. I want to start off with another Ethiopian proverb, at least translated to English. And before we get into all this stuff that you're already doing within the industry and within Africa, I want to get into some wisdom. What does this mean to you? It says, the fool speaks and the wise man listens.
Those who observe have wisdom. Those who speak without reflection, without observation, all they have is noise. And I think that oftentimes some of the most intelligent people that I've met, they'll be in a room for a few hours before they say anything. So now they have they've built a external neural network of everything that's going on before they now comment on it. Whereas, you know, we've seen it with modern day music. People will just be saying anything, and without being a student first. And the problem with being a student is that in order to learn, you have to be humble you have to be humble enough to admit that you don't know something.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to be a student. Oftentimes people speak and it has no purpose. It has no substance.
Mm-hmm.
And now I think a lot of people are more contained within the entertainment field by the fact that all they have to do is create content to be popular. There needs to be no substance anymore.
Mm-hmm.
All there needs to be is content. All there needs to be is something to capture somebody's attention. But for me, that's as bad as an advert for a fast food.
Right.
And eventually that's going to get you sick. And
Right.
eventually you're going to get cancer. So I don't know whether or not modern entertainment or modern content and streaming platforms and things that people are watching is going to make them physically sick, but it's making them mentally sick.
Well, no, it's turning them into monsters. Instagram is the Frankenstein that creates the monster. The monster doesn't even know, right, what his purpose is. We have become so desensitized and we've become so algorized that everything that we do is for the likes and nothing has true love in it anymore, right? And when you have a society that is contained, trying to entertain others, but this entertainment has no value. There's no edutainment in it. There's no education in it. There's no wisdom. There's a lack of literacy. The people are just smart enough to fool themselves, to fool the people, right? To where I'm stealing your attention for a moment in time and you're getting nothing back but a cheap dopamine hit. You understand me? You laugh at my foolery while I'm able to go leverage this for a platform that's making billions, right? And so we watch these, and what's more important today is storylines. Because we don't have a great attention span, but human beings have always been intrigued by stories. Stories are like symbols because they represent symbols, archetypes, and ideas that we are able to follow along. So it's like if somebody wants to position themselves right now, it's less about your marketing and more about your positioning. What is the position that you have in the marketplace in the minds of the people? The problem is that we take this intelligence and we're not using it for something good, right? If you have this ability, it's like you can be poetic and philosophical and you can have a great way with words, but you could also be a pimp, right? So you can take your powers and you can use it for something that's wasteful. And then maybe it makes you some money. And then maybe you justify this making of money, right? Because you're also intelligent enough to deceive yourself. And I think that especially with millennials, I think our generation is intelligent enough to remember a world without everything. We've gotten educated, and a lot of these people who I see doing dumb things are very smart because they're focused on turning this ignorance into a business model. This business model precedes them, but it's also everything that we've complained about when it comes to the industry. But now we're saying, let's just take that 360 ourselves. Let's take that and spread the ignorance. That's why the lowest of our society is representing the rest of us, unfortunately, and that becomes the export for the rest of the world as they are observing what they think is black culture, right? But it's really ignorance, right? And it's really people who are desperate for money, right? And desperate for attention. I might see somebody claiming that he's a millionaire online, but not a millionaire in the sense of saying, I now have my integrity. I don't have to do things I don't want to do. No, you're a person who is so desperate for more money, you'll do anything for it. So you don't have the money has you.
I mean, when the ends justify the means, but the end has no meaning, what's the point?
Man, you can say that again.
When the ends, I just came up with it. When the ends justify the means, but the end has no meaning, what's the point? The end is supposed to be ascension. It's supposed to be enlightenment. It's supposed to be you are getting closer to God. And where we have an economy that has no ecology, all we have is coonery. Like that's all I'm seeing now.
Drop them bars.
all I'm seeing now is coonery and people fighting and competing to stay relevant. And where you're fighting and competing to stay relevant in a timeline that's linear, then you will never be able to reach the end and be enlightened. Where we're supposed to be, we were speaking before about time and monochromatic time and polychromatic time. We as melanated people are supposed to see time as a cycle.
Right.
Rather than being on time, we're supposed to be in time, right? And so where you see time as a line rather than time as a cycle,
right,
now you're just going to be chasing numbers. And it's like Bob Marley said, numbers never end. So you're never going to be happy because, in our lifetime, we've
Right.
seen millionaires, we've seen billionaires, now we've seen a trillionaire.
Right.
In our lifetime.
Right.
Does that guy look happy? He doesn't look happy to me. He looks like he's almost he looks very stoic. He looks like he abuses substances. He looks like he's very unhealthy, and he looks like he's very nonchalant about humanity.
Yeah.
He doesn't look passionate, and he doesn't look happy. He doesn't look like God is with him, right? And where people are trying to be literal gods on earth, and now God has almost been replaced by money. Now you're having the ending is money. That's it.
Yeah, and the more meaningless a society, the more discipline is required because you have to force yourself to do things you don't want to do. The more meaningful something, the more flow you're in because the easier it is to do. I can wake up and I want to do this. I don't think happiness enters the mind of a true elite capitalist. I think happiness is something that comes from a warm place, comes from a warm culture, right? What makes me happy is not the drive of people who are saying what makes me money, right? What they even experience or what they think of happiness is, it's almost like a person that experiences life in black and white. They don't know color, right? And we literally experience color, right? Because we absorb radiation from the sun and we emit that as light, right? And so for us, like, I think the reflection of even our own biology has a play on the way we think. I was listening to Joey Badass talking about this concept of close cognition, and he was explaining how when there's a scientific experiment that shows that when people wear certain clothes, right, and they take certain tests, let's say if you're wearing a sciences jacket and you're taking a science test, it can boost score, right? When you take that same jacket and you tell those people it's now what's those art things you wear when you
like an overall, like a coverall.
The same thing that looks like a schmuck, but it's more so saying this is a painter's jacket.
Okay.
It doesn't have the same effect, right? Because the intention that's behind it matters. And then I think about that, you know, in a sense of self as well, right? If there's a clothed cognition of what we wear, what about what we see when we look in the mirror? The embodiment of our melanin. Peace, family. It's 19 Keys tapping in. As you know, we've been on this journey with high-level conversations over the last 3 years, right? It's been an incredible journey. We knocked out about 72 episodes, and we had a great partnership over there with EYL, right? We've been taking digital literacy, financial literacy, mental literacy. We've been having conversations about metaphysics, you name it. You know what your favorite episodes are, and it takes a lot to do all of this, and we want to be able to do more. It's not sustainable in the current environment because when we speak in truth, we don't ever want to be censored, right? And what we're doing is making sure that the people become our sponsors so we have the capabilities and the capital to be able to create more. And now we're creating and curating content that's just for you, our core audience, those who are true supporters, those who are feel that high-level conversations is a necessary good in the public space, in the public eye. So we created our Patreon, right? For those who want to be a part of it, those who want to get access to exclusive behind the scenes episodes, who want to also be mentioned, right, in our episodes and in our credits and get invited to some exclusive things as well. Make sure you tap in, comment Patreon because we already have things up right now in there rolling. And we plan to tell more stories, to push more narratives, especially since they're trying to control the culture, but only the culture should control the culture. I'm going to continue to do my job, and I know you're going to do yours. Join the Patreon for all those that are part of the High Level Nation. Peace to the family, peace to the gods. I see you on the inside. So the concepts of polychronism is 2 points in time, right? Past and present, right? But it's not really regarding towards the future because conceptually, I think it was MBT, the philosopher, that talks about and documenting African time. And in those African time systems, it was relational to the past and representation of identity and self, right? The past becomes so important, and we talk about the past because we're actually wired to, right? Because that's how we connect. We talk about our ancestors, not our descendants, right? So we're not really projecting too much into the future. We're more so focused on the past. A people that's in survival will focus on the future because they never know where the next is coming. When I had a conversation with President Museveni, he said, you know, here in our country, even a fool can survive. And he said that because we're so close to the equator, we can produce food from almost anywhere. Our soil is rich in nutrient, and they have the high volcanic soil over there. So that makes it even better. Like you can walk through the woods and you can find ingredients like you grocery shopping. But then he says the climate here is good all year round. So you can starve and you can't freeze, right? So that puts you in a different mindset where some of the Bushmen, they work when they want to because they don't have to, right? So that would decrease ambition because you're not always constantly projecting one in the future. You're living in harmony with the harvest, right, and the land. Versus if you live in a cold climate, you have to think about what's coming next. I might have just got some food, but now I'm automatically thinking about, okay, when is my next hunt, right? And so now you never get to rest, right? And now you're thinking about conquering. If somebody has something, I need to take what they have because I'm not sure if I'm going to eat without taking what they have, right? I'm never satisfied. I'm always in this cold thinking. And I look at planetary, the issue that we have with people is a lot of times we don't identify. Like some people think in cold cognition, some people think in warm cognition, right? So when we think about time and even our systems, a lot of time I will say we as melanated people are not always projecting in the future, right? And that projection in the future have you thinking about business and industry, right, and empire building and talking about the next 100 to 200 to 500 years differently, where billionaires will convene in Davos every year to talk about the future, right? People talk about how they're going to spend trillions of dollars and they're putting together 100-year plans in multitude of different industries for robotics, for quantum, for climate, for culture, social engineering, where things going in space. So a lot of times what we end up talking about is mostly the present and the past. This is what's happened to us. This is who we are, right? But the problem is, and the way I see it, is that if you're not also focused on, number one, having cold and warm cognition, having past, present, and future, then you can't structurally set yourself up for the future because you're not even thinking of how to architect your plans so that you're fighting somebody else who is also trying to take time, which they look at as a territory to conquer. So when they say, look, we're going to be the Titans for the next 50 years, and you thinking about it, well, we've been the original people for the last 50 million years, it's different. They just focus on the next 50 years to control. So now they're playing chess with time. Now every move that they make, they'll get you to sign a contract because you need it right now to get out of survival because you're hungry, but you don't know inside that contract, right, they have you set up so that they actually own you for the next 20 years. Right. And now we're looking at rappers and different entertainers like, damn, I was focused in the moments, right? So it's this temporal consciousness that allows you to kind of look forward, look backward, and be present. But how can we be present if everything in social media is focused on stealing our present attention, which means you actually have no time to plan for the future?
I think, and let me go back because I said chromatic, and that means colors, not chronic. Polychronic time and monochronic time ideas is basically just global north versus global south, really. And the way that you're looking at time through the lens of colder climates, where you have shorter days, then you have longer days, and you kind of have a disruption, and where you have timelines that are based on the equator, where you have the same time every day the sun rises and the same time every day the sun sets. So like, in Kiswahili, we'd say saa moja. Saa moja is the first hour, right? But the first hour of the day is, guess when? It's not 24-hour clock. The first hour of the day is when the sun rises.
When the sun rises.
Because everybody else is asleep.
Like a plant.
Right, exactly. What has anybody got to do when it's 5 a.m., 4 a.m., 3? Like, what are you doing at that time? You're sleeping. So the first hour of the day is saa moja, and then you count the hours from that time, rather than saying at 1 a.m. is the first hour of the day, because it's not the day, and you shouldn't be up at that time. If you're living within your proper circadian rhythms, you shouldn't be asleep at that time, right? And all of the lights and the phones and the death scrolling and these things are distractions from our normal circadian rhythm. And if you want to see a true circadian rhythm, see what a child does. A child goes to sleep when the sun goes down. The child wakes up when the sun comes up. Regardless of if you're tired or not, that child's getting up at 6 a.m. As soon as the light comes in, the child is awake, right? And now we have blackout curtains to try and, when we've overslept or whatever. And is like what I was saying before. Sorry, you're on a timeline and you're on time and not in time. That means you can't really fully enjoy time.
Right.
Because you don't have time. So like, for instance, I was born in Barbados. My family's from Jamaica and Barbados. We're not going to get there on time most of the time, right? We're going to get there in time, in the rhythm, but we'll get there, right? And also, while we're doing that, we're also doing multiple things. But it's the same thing in Africa. It's the same thing in Arab countries. It's the same thing in most of the global south. If somebody in India oftentimes tells you, yeah, I want to be there at 1 o'clock. They might be there at 1:30. They might be there at 2:30. There's traffic. They might leave at the time they're supposed to get there, but they're going to get there. And finishing a conversation, you've been to the cookout, finishing a conversation is almost more important than getting to where you're going next.
Yeah.
People will talk you out of the place and you realize that actually your meeting time might have been at 1 p.m. You don't get there till 3 p.m. The party doesn't start till 5 p.m.
Right.
And it's supposed to be done at 10, but
Right.
it's going on till 1.
Right.
That is us being in time and enjoying our time. And this is why when I ask you what time the party starts, you're not going to say 8 p.m. You're going to say the party started when Snoop came.
Yeah.
Right? Or you're going to say the party started when the food was ready. Right? So where we're living in systems, competing with systems that have all of this black energy, all of this, the energy of the melanated people of the global south on a timeline that is based on a stock market, that is based on a system of capitalism that shows no substance for ecology, and then we're fighting amongst ourselves. The question I actually have for you is, how much energy do you think that we have spent fighting each other that we could have spent building has been wasted, and what do you think that if we just stop fighting with each other, we can build together?
I think that kind of gets me towards energy leakage. All right, so let's think about, I'm going to contextualize that in America, because I think that that's where I'm best to speak on. Throughout our history, and let's say we really only started fighting each other the last, 5 to 10 years, to be honest with you. This is fighting each other is a social media phenomenon in reality, right? Because when we think about the last 400 or 500 years in America, we have always formed coalitions and coordinated with each other because we knew who our enemy was. It was very obvious, right? Whether you're coming from South America's shores and brothers that's coming from the Congo get dropped off and they warriors and they killing their captors, right? Or you coming into America from somewhere in Africa and then there's already native people there and then y'all connecting and saying, let's go to war against our, you feel me? This is where you get the different societies, you know. And so now we're at this point in time where we really need to remember how much we've been working together. If you go look at time and you go study it and you're going to see hundreds and hundreds of secret organizations and organizations that we've created for coalitions, accords, unification, right throughout time. And that is something that we don't talk about enough because we've had more time unified than we've actually had with discord. And I think it's the narrative that is pushed as if black people don't work together. But when we talk about the 60 plus towns that were produced throughout American history, when we talk about Black Wall Street being destroyed, then rebuilt back up 3 years later, when we talk about all the Renaissance cities, when we talk about just W.E.B. Du Bois and everything that he did, right? We have a long-standing history of coordinating, producing coalitions, producing unified movements, producing media, producing business, like having underground these what was it called? Not the Green Book, but it was something to where a lot of brothers that came out of the military were organizing behind the scenes. Sometimes they would meet up in militaries. There was like this secret book that they would have that they would pass around. You know, we can even look at the Nation of Islam as an organizing body. Black America has always been organizing, but we just been disrupted. We've had always an enemy of organization and coordination. The better we do it, the bigger the enemy, right? And so I look at it almost as if it's never to paint the narrative if we're not the people that are pro-black, because I think we're the most pro-black people. And pro-black, I'm just kind of defining as we're wanting the autonomy for each other. Like, I want you to make your own decisions. I want you to have the freedom and the abilities, you know, to be for yourself, right? And I believe that that's really all we've always wanted. I think now it's really about us controlling the narrative and understanding where to invest our time and energy that will be the most productive, because we've never given up. We just don't know where the most effective energy is going to be output, or the greatest output of our energy gives us the best return on it. So I think it's more so about the behind the scenes coordination to be more intentional as a people for whatever we want to build, right? And so it's like me and you coming together and saying, let's do something is a microcosm of that. But then if we take our networks who we're connected with, and if we take the people that disagree with us, there are a multitude of people that may disagree with us, but we have much bigger enemies than our small indifferences, right? So it's like, okay, well, you might not like Shaka, you might not like Keys, but do you like your enemy more than you hate us, right? And if you think that freedom is a bigger issue, right, than whatever small indifferences that we have, then you can say, okay, let's coordinate, let's share resources. Otherwise, I think it's bullshit, and excuse my language because I know my mom loves this show. You understand me? But I think it's BS that we talk about the enemy, we talk about the problem, but we're unwilling to build a coalition of forces against them. And I'm talking about easy. Like we was talking about this earlier. Niggas will go and fly out 30, 40 baddies somewhere to a country, spend $200,000. But if you ask that same person to do something that's investment into a business, right, or even some philanthropic idea that's good for the culture, they don't actually see the return on that. They know they're going to be able to bust a nut and enjoy themselves for the weekend, so that's more important to them, right? But then they want to get outside and act like they champions of the people, but there's no investment, none, unless they can put a camera there and then get some media and some press off that, right? And maybe that really is your heart, but you're not making any smart investments. I call that dumb philanthropy. You understand me? Like you can do it, but it's not going to actually produce any effective change because it's really more beneficial to you and your heart to get it done versus actually helping set it up an infrastructure so you don't have to give away turkeys every year.
Well, the philanthropy, it seems, is paying for pom-pom. It seems like it's a lot of our leaders in Africa in particular. I know this from speaking to various people across the course of time. I've been going to Ethiopia for over 10 years now. All of the sex workers in Ethiopia know that the busiest time for them is the AU meeting. That's the busiest time for them.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm going to say, I have to tell the story because otherwise everybody's going to think I use sex workers and I don't.
Go ahead and tell your sex worker story.
So basically, my great friend Sabali, may he rest in power, Sebastian Eubank, I love you, brother. You're watching us from heaven. Me and him were in Ethiopia and we're boxing, so we wanted to go get a massage. So it's at night time now, and we tell the taxi man, yo, we need to go get a massage, you know, take us somewhere we can get a massage. He's like, all right, cool. So he takes us to this area, it's called Chichinya in Addis. And we're seeing like, you know, red light strips and all this stuff. And we're like, this don't look like no area to get no massage. And he's like, you want a massage at 9 p.m.? This is where you get a massage. I was like, all right, cool. So we went into the place now, and the most beautiful women you've ever seen, just gorgeous women. And so me and him walk in, and this is like 8 years ago or something like that. And we've been working out, we're looking strong, all of these things. And the women are like, okay, what are you doing here? Like, right. Like, you don't look like our usual client or customer, right? So they were looking at us like, oh, what are you doing here? And we said, we want a massage. Like, we want a massage. And they went, massage? Okay, cool. Took us to this room, laid us down on these like foam mattresses on the floor. And so we're laying down like this, like ready to get a massage. And he's looking at me and he's just like, I hope these women are good. Because we know they're sex workers at this point. And we just hear some noise behind us, some giggling. We turn around, they're all naked. And we're just like, there's like 4 of them all naked. We're like, we turn around, we were pissed at this point now because we're like, no, we want an actual massage, not some diseases. Like, we want a massage. So they're like, okay, cool. They put their clothes back on and they were giving us this massage. It was just like, a terrible massage, right? But at this time, we're like, all right, we're here now. Let's just talk to them anyway. And so we were asking them, like, who's your clients out here? And she said, well, not she said, the woman who was talking to me, but the women as a collective, they were like politicians. Our biggest customers are politicians, Chinese and European foreign business owners. And their biggest time, so now the context, you've got the context, their biggest time is when the African Union meetings are held in Addis. That's their most busiest time. And it's like, so hang on. We, right now in Africa, we don't have one passport. We don't have one currency. We don't have one language. How is it that all of these brilliant, intelligent minds can't get on the same page to say it's beneficial to have one passport so everybody can travel and trade between borders. And why are we upholding these colonial borders that don't make any sense? It's beneficial that all of our children can talk to each other. Why is it that we've got to learn Arabic, we've got to learn English, we've got to learn languages outside of our normal genotype? We've got to learn these languages so that we can communicate with each other. And why is it that if I go to Ghana, where I live, and I take the city and I go to Addis and they have the brr, there's no exchange. I can't even exchange it. There's no way I can exchange it. It's the dollar, it's the franc. Well, yeah, it's not even the franc. It's the dollar, it's the euro, and I think they're coming up with this BRICS currency now, right? And maybe they can do the yuan, the Chinese one. You can't exchange African currencies. I can't bring a Caribbean currency to Africa and exchange it, right? And so we were speaking about this earlier. If you took all of the money that all of these politicians spend on flying out women, right, and put that in a pool, right, put that in one place, right, and use that. This is why I have so much reverence for Traoré and what's going on with the AES right now.
Before we get there, I want you to hold that thought. Do not forget what you are about to say.
Go on.
But we can't just skip past the story. So you went into the Ethiopian massage parlor with these beautiful Ethiopian women, you know, and when you get there, you know, it's dazzling. You know, it's nice. It smells good. The women look good, and y'all lay down, you know what I mean, on these small little cots. Then the women are just disrobed, right? Bodies is just like magnificent, right? However you say that in Tigrinya. What's the language?
Amharic.
Amharic.
You say konjo.
Konjo, right? You turn around and say konjo. Took you by surprise. And y'all response was, let's have a podcast. I just wanted to sum this story up. Listen. You know, as a man who's, I'm sure, has never struggled with women, speaking to a man who has never struggled with women, that is not the time to sleep with somebody when you have to put up bread to sleep with them. Yeah, and it is very dangerous. You are taking the role of a dice.
Well, I'm not a trick.
And I hope not.
I'm not a trick.
There's a lot of tricks out here.
There's a lot of tricks, but listen, it is not just tricking, it's also playing mind tricks where these people are now believing that they have some kind of real relationship with these people. The frontal lobe has expanded over the last 10 years because of how much digital information that we're receiving, not analog information we're receiving. And scientists explain that biochemically, we can't really tell the difference between pornography and actual sex. And when you're paying money to sleep with women and sex is supposed to be spiritual, how are you telling the difference between this is an honest relationship and this is a business transaction? So when we're there, Sebastian, very handsome brother, there is no way in which I'm going to be like, yeah, let me put up money. I want to find out what's going on. That's my opportunity to.
No, I can actually. I think the story is true. I'm just messing with you.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying right that if there's a room full of naked women, just for the sake of it,
matters.
Right. But at that time, I found out that actually, what's going on with the African Union?
Actually, and before you said that, there is a huge issue with just sex trade and sex workers in Africa. Like, anytime I go to Ghana, that's all you see on the side of the roads. And I don't think that there's any incentive to solve that problem. Unemployment is way too high. These young people that are not, even the ones that are educated can't get jobs. And then the ones that don't have any education are stuck in these situations to where they have to sell their body. And shout out to my brother D1 who got banned from all the strip clubs in Atlanta because he was talking about, like, you may enjoy the strip club, right? And you may go in there and have a fantastic time. I just seen A$AP Rocky and Rihanna in there going turning up in Magic City, right? But the question had become is, would you want your daughter on that pole, right? And then the question becomes is, why not, right? Do you not think that this is a line of work that has any respectability in it, regardless of how much fun you are having? If so, then you wouldn't mind your daughter being a part of it. But it's more so a moral challenge to anybody that goes in and says that, well, I don't believe in it because I think it's a moral affront and I think that my family is too good for this and I would never want my daughter in such position, right? And, you know, it's the same thing when we kind of look at the amount of money that's spent by Black America in strip clubs, and not just strip clubs.
Or on OnlyFans.
But OnlyFans and entertainment, and not even just Black America. We're talking OnlyFans. We're talking about America now. But just specifically because we're talking about the AAU or politicians or the strip clubs themselves, and these are people that own these clubs and tax write-offs and all kind of crazy stuff that flood through there. You understand me? Money laundering and all kind of stuff. But just the reality of it is that it's mostly our ignorance that we actually can take a lot of that money. I talked to my brother Keenan Beasley, and we had talked about this last episode we had with Boyce Watkins, how much money it takes to run a local grocery store. And it came down to like $150,000, right? And you go find your favorite top athlete rapper, somebody, they've spent that in the club when they could have operated a local grocery store in their hometown, you understand me, for free for the people, and had that as a tax write-off for the next 4 or 5 years, you understand me, under that operating cost. And it's more so who can help us structure the solutions, because these people have the money, it's going out, but nobody's really telling them how much that dollar can do and then giving them that proposal.
I think this the end result of a dystopian reality that is being fueled by systems that are not spiritual. Right? So when you made the music industry, not you, but I'm speaking about the capitalists, when they made the music industry an industry, they removed spirituality from what we'd always use to communicate to God and communicate God to us, right? Now what you have with these kind of systems is you have complete removal of spirituality, and almost you're putting a pedestal, you're creating this trophy wife reality for a whole generation of women who, and I said this like 15 years ago, I was working in an all girls school and I did like fitness sessions, and I was doing it in an all boys school, and I was doing it in mixed schools as well. And when I'd ask the young women who they want to be, they were saying Kim Kardashian, right? And that is contingent on Kim Kardashian is such a such a successful businesswoman based on the fact that she used her sexuality to get to a particular position of business. Not saying that she's not good at marketing, but what I'm saying is that where we used to have pioneers of industry, where we used to have spiritual gurus and people who were really the ones that communicated God to us as the ones that are famous. Now you have mega church pastors who are collecting tithe and hanging from the ceiling for whatever stupid reason. And now you have this social media space that is glorifying sex work and also glorifying the fact that we have a bunch of men who are lusting after women that they don't know and spending money, real money, on women that they don't know. And then you have a bunch of women who are lusting after a lifestyle that they can't afford. And where they converge is in this dystopian space where you have women that hate men and men that hate women and no village and children being raised up in that and looking to men that have no spirituality and women that have no spirituality as their leaders of the future. And then after all of that, people say, oh, you know, these YNs, they don't know what's going on. And it's like, actually, us now, the millennials, right? This is our generation. We are supposed to be the ones that are supposed to be handing the future over to the next generation. That's why I mentor a bunch of people who are 15 up to the age of like 25. That's why I make sure that whenever I'm around younger people, I'm like, yeah, but you need to read. You can't just scroll all the time. You need to read. And that is why I think that where we are spending more and more time online, we need to start to properly digitize anthropology and digitize indigenous wisdom so that, like, for instance, when I'm doing the streaming stuff, right, I am making sure that I'm going through my mind map of culture, of anthropology, of history, and putting that all into that space, because now it's being digitized and people are now looking at something where they're like, oh, I thought that was scary, or I thought that was primitive, or I thought that was this and this and that, and they're communicating it to, oh, this is intelligence, and I get to see it on my phone.
Right. And I think that goes towards, as you were talking about, some of the cognitive issues when we talk about, you know, the prefrontal cortex, right? Like when there's hyperfrontality and there's low stimulation in their prefrontal cortex, it makes it harder for people to focus, makes it harder for them to plan long term, right? And to plan things in steps. And if you look at the opposite of that, like we definitely have a spiritually devoid society, right? But when you increase that spirituality, then you're actually increasing, and studies have shown, like when people pray, when people meditate, right, that stillness actually increases clarity, right? It increases activity in their prefrontal cortex. So you have two things that's happening. You have a demoralization of the world where you're losing the spiritual values, practices, and rituals. Then you're increasing, right, in practices that are actually decreasing that activity that allows you to plan, to think of the future, to produce systems, and even to see patterns, right? And so it's similar to when the Zen Buddhist is saying that the consciousness, it directs life force. Right? If you can increase the consciousness, and consciousness is a big word that we can use for so many things. But if we're talking about the mental life force of your mind, right? The direction of one's attention and the expansion of the abilities of that attention and those gifts that come along with it, the spirituality can save this generation, because they don't have the ability to save themselves if they can't think, if they can't clear their mind. If their mind is distracted, it sees fragments. But if their mind is focused, it sees the patterns. And that pattern thinking allows you to then see what's going on in your own life. If we talk about cycles, and we study those, we see a pattern emerge. And now if we want to disrupt that pattern and have a pattern break either in our behavior or and something even macro that is happening in society, we can change that. We can say, okay, well, this is what happens when technological development reaches a community without technological literacy, right? Then there's an economic effect, right? Then there's, at this point now, we have a sexual recession because there's not enough face-to-face and in-person experiences, right? Anything that has spirituality in it, we have to increase that, because that void makes the effects of social media and scrolling 1,000 times worse, right? And so it's the loss of rituals, spiritual rituals, because in ritual is the word, or in the word spiritual is the word ritual, right? And so what are the rituals that allow us to contain our life force, that makes it easier so that we can flow into a more abundant life? It's not supposed to be hard.
Right.
I'm not saying, yo, be the most disciplined person, like you the most militant man in the world. That is required when you're really trying to force yourself to go against the grain, to deprogram. But once you're deprogrammed, life should become easier, because your habits should be flowing into a ritual of success.
And I actually think that if you're speaking about flow state, you're really speaking about melanin, and you're speaking about the way that through just human biology, we perceive sunlight and we perceive time. And melanin, coming from the Greek word melas, and it's speaking to melanocytes, is actually a cycle and a rhythm that goes within your body daily, from, where we're receiving light, we're producing vitamin D, we're turning it into food, we're turning it into brain food. And then we now have ganja that never sees sunlight. We have food that never sees sunlight. You have hydroponic grown food. You're having food that's full of pesticides and herbicides. You're having, like, a lot of my friends are music people, right? And I often get invited to the studio. Oh, you want to go to the studio? You want to go to the studio? And I'm like, no, because it's dark in there and I don't know what time it is when I come out of the place. And a lot of people have been offering me a bag for many years. Yo, come to America, come and speak at this thing, come and do this thing. And for a lot of my life, and literally I've turned down hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, because I would rather be on a beach in Africa or the Caribbean eating a mango under the natural sun and going to bed at the right time, right? And I think now where we have melanin, that's become a buzzword now, and a lot of people don't understand that actually the third ventricle within your brain contains the pineal organ, and that's how you perceive time and space, and that's how you are able to produce melanin, and that's how you are able to actually translate reality. Now they're doing that as almost a marketing product rather than a spiritual product. And whenever you're off that rhythm and whenever you're off that time, that's when you start to get cancer. That's when you start to get hypertension. That's when you start to get diabetes and all of these things. And we have now, I think, a lot of young people who are very angry at the systems that have been created. And me and you didn't create these systems. We've inherited these systems and we're trying our best to change these systems and also to create our own systems. But you have a lot of young people who are more interested in commercial products and understand more brands of clothing and food products, food-like products, than they do trees in the forest. They can't name trees. They can't name constellations. They can't name basic things that we used to know.
Yeah.
And you have a bunch of young people now, particularly in Africa, who are uprising against systems that are terrible systems. But at the same time, what do they propose as the solution for those systems? Because a lot of them want to be Americans. A lot of them, I'm not saying progressive black Americans like your brother that we met earlier. What was his name? Keenan that we met earlier, or Lanny, who has Actively Black, which is an amazing clothing line that is on God's time. We have a bunch of people who are trying to emulate the Lil Yachty's and the Kodak Blacks and the et ceteras, who are really abusing substances and living on a completely different time. And this is in Africa now. They are trying to emulate the idea or the exported idea of black culture by people who are not black oftentimes to the continent, and they're uprising and they're saying, we don't want these leaders. We don't want that. We want to kick out this president. But what they're going to replace it with is the exact same system, because they haven't studied ecology. If you're going to kick out a leader who is stealing, and as we just said a few minutes ago, is stealing and paying money for sex workers, right? And he's driving around in expensive cars and he's doing all of these things, you're going to kick him out. Are you going to replace him with ecology? Are you going to replace him? Like, what is the system? Is it capitalism? Is it communism? Is it democratic socialism? Is it communalism? I haven't seen yet a plan from a young person in Africa who's angry at the government, who's saying, you know what, we're going to replace this government with this system, and this is what it requires, and this is how much we've studied, and this is how many people we've got organized, and this is what the university is going to look like, and this is what the curriculum is going to look like. It's just emotionality. We need to kick these people out. And if they got elected as the leaders, I'm telling you, tomorrow they would do the same stuff.
Well, yeah, because the system is entrenched in that. Like when we start talking about neocolonialism and colonialism itself left behind systems of oppression, right? So even though the people left, the systems remain, right? When I was in Nigeria, and I hope I have a better trip, because the last person that brought me to Nigeria did not do me right. So my Nigerian brothers, I need another trip, and sisters, like I need a better trip. I'm just gonna say that. I enjoyed the jollof, but the rest, no. Anyway, when I just had to do it as a PSA for those who are watching. But when you're out there, I remember they was putting on the national anthem. I think it's a national anthem, and it sounds like a colonizer's wet dream. You understand me? To have those people still singing in your language, right? And there's places where they're still wearing the wigs of the colonizers. And I have no respect for that. Like, I just want to let you know, and anybody else, I don't care how you take it. I have zero respect for any place, in any space where they're still wearing the colonizer's wig. And that's their justice system.
Or white Jesus in Africa.
That's just diabolical. Like, you don't respect yourself. You understand me? Like, if you want to take Caesar Borgia and make him your God, you understand me? Like, of course, I can see why we don't get along. I can see why we don't agree. I can see why somebody would be like, oh, the color of Jesus don't matter. Well, then why would you change the color of his skin?
Right.
It matters if you're going to lie. The truth matters, right? And I've said this before, it's only black people that don't care about the color of Jesus.
Right.
Right? Because if that's the case, then they would have kept him dark-skinned, right? And we are the ones that will go get, it was Biggie Smalls that popularized the Jesus piece, right? He was the one that went and got that big old white Jesus, right? Then cats didn't have enough knowledge of self where they went and got a white Jesus tatted on them.
Right.
And I always thought on how strong the quote of it is, the quote of white Christianity, because we're not talking about Christianity, period, because we can go to Coptic Christianity in Ethiopia and have a different conversation. But when we're talking about the colonizers' Christianity, the amount of work that it does on the mind, that takes a young black boy and a young girl who says, I will go tattoo the picture of a white man on my body so that there's a permanent representation of who's my God. I don't think we understand the psychological damage that occurs when that happens. And the necessity for true depiction actually does matter. And 100 years, 1,000 years, don't goddamn make 19 Keys white. No, the truth fucking matters. And I think we need to stop saying that the color of him don't matter. Yes, the virtues of his character matter when we're talking about the story, but the truth of who he was matters just as most, especially contextually for a man who was hanged by the empire for challenging a system, because that same story is occurring today. We don't have that same story occurring with white faces. We have that same story occurring with melanated faces, right? So when you change the story, it becomes a white lie. Right. No, the context of the color of the man matters, because I don't know if those same people will be Christians if they got to go then put a dark-skinned man, right, in their church, and that's who they pray to.
As soon as anybody says to me, Jesus doesn't have a color and it doesn't matter, I know that they're one of those people who are apologists for white people. Yeah. As soon as they say anything to do with, oh, I don't believe in color. Yeah. It's like, well, what do you do when you get to the traffic lights?
But believing in color is not even a thing. You ain't got to believe in color.
Right, it exists.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this is red regardless if you believe in it. Right. I'm a brown-skinned man regardless if you believe in the color brown. Right. Right? Do your eyes work? Unless you know what I'm saying? Like, unless you colorblind, that's just stupid. I don't see color. Why? Because you racist. Right. Anybody who said they don't see color means that they actually are so biased that they don't want to add color to you. Right. This is brother I was talking to. He was explaining how he raised tens of millions of dollars as a black man. And he said one of the tricks that he does is that he cuts off his camera and acts like there's not a good enough service, so that when he's talking to these white folks that he's raising money from, they're not looking at his color of his skin. They're listening to him. Right? They're just listening to the idea. And these are the things that we have to do to try to become successful in this world that they will have no understanding of. And sometimes the inherent biases are so deeply rooted that they don't even realize it. Right? It's like black people experience racism. White people experience discrimination sometimes, but never racism anytime. Right? And so that has to be stated, because to take the color of Jesus and make him white is racist. That means that you are racist to his color. That means that you don't like Jesus. Because if you don't like him as a black man, then you don't like him as a man at all.
I gotta show this. If the camera can get this, I'm gonna zoom into this. So in Congo, where I built a village in Congo, right here, you see these women with pictures of the Black Madonna and the Black Baby Jesus from Ethiopia. I had to get it to all of them because in Congo, this is how the brainwashing's been done, right? In Congo, let me just show you again. In Congo, right? In Black African Congo, where these people have never seen a white person before in their life, they're worshiping white Jesus. So now I'm up there, up a mountain, by the foot of a volcano, at a village that I built for those people. Yeah. We built, it was, myself, Vic Mensa, Kelani, Lenny Kravitz, Kari Delevingne. I had to assemble the Avengers for Congo. Wait a minute,
do color matter? Because y'all all not.
I had to assemble that. But I basically had this village built, and it was a big team of us that had the village built. And then I'm going into people's, not even before we even put them in the village, I'm going into tents, and people are in tents as refugees in Congo because of the war in Congo, with a picture of white Jesus in a tent, thinking that a white man is going to come and save them up a mountain in warfare. And this is the level of programming that we're at. And I had to be like, you know what it is? And this is a segue into me and Keys are taking you to Ethiopia, because I am tired of the Gregorian calendar being the dominant philosophy of today's black people consciousness. I am tired of we need to get back to the Orthodox calendar, and then even before that, we need to get back to the Medunetto, but we need to go to the Orthodox calendar. And the reason why I'm saying that is because what the hell has Pope whatever his name got to do with us? Why is it that we are on a Gregorian calendar since Pope Gregory, 1582? We haven't got off that calendar yet. Everybody's telling me that 9/11 is the worst day ever in history, etc., etc. 9/11 is the Ethiopian New Year's. Why am I still celebrating New Year's, Christmas, etc., all on this calendar, which is completely off calendar? And That's why we got to take you to Ethiopia, because I want to show you the original churches in Lalibela. I want to show you the stone, the churches that are carved out of stone. I want to take you into a church where all of the images in that church represent your skin complexion, represent who you look like, rather than take you into a space that represents somebody that is not of you. I want to take you to where the birthplace of coffee comes from, original coffee, where coffee actually comes from. I want to take you to a place where you can see the remains of the first human, or is said to be the oldest remains of Homo sapiens sapien, Dinkinesh, Lucy, they call it, the white people call her Lucy. I want to take you to where injera's from, which is an ancient African grain, where you can eat alkaline food, and of the year, you have 180 days of the year, the whole country is fasting. I want to take you to a Christian ceremony where you're going to be around hundreds of thousands of Christians, all wearing white, and you're not going to see a single piece of materialism. You're not going to see them pulling up in Rolls Royces. You're not going to see them wearing name brands. There's no brand. The brand is spirituality. I want to take you to there, and Keys wants to take you there as well, so that you can actually learn about where we come from and get closer to where we come from, rather than learn more about who we are or not.
And I like Coptic Christianity and just the Coptic Christians, because they are more so aligned when I think about Islam in the way that I understand Islam, because they even think about the divine hierarchy and the reflection of the mind of God, right? They operate with the cosmos in mind, right? And so much of those rituals have been lost, yet we see a lot of people utilize the fact that Ethiopia has Christianity, right, as validation for what they practice, even though those practices don't look similar at all. Right? Not even close.
Right.
And so the question becomes, if you're also going to empower your stance on your beliefs, then why not go to the roots of how we practiced it, right? That I can respect, right, 100%. And so I want to go there, you understand me? If you see these sun, moon, and stars, I'm always in representation of that cosmic time. And I believe that the problem with the current reality is that we are no longer in alignment with the cosmos. We're no longer living in alignment with our own melanin. If we are the opposite of vampires, you understand me? We're supposed to come out in the sun. It's supposed to empower us. Right? And we're supposed to absorb it. That's how we get our vitamins and our nutrients. You understand me? And we get information. You talked about it earlier with the melanocytes, but if you're talking about the suprachiasmatic nucleus, to where when you send in electricity to the brain, and it is also programming your time rhythm, right? How you operate throughout the day. The problem with the universal calendar of time, the universal coordinated time, is that it was built for an industry. It was to industrialize humanity so that you can make labor, right, more effective. It was about commerce and navigation and roads and military coordination and global trade and industrial efficiency. It was all about a system of managing labor, time as a system of managing labor, right? And so, therefore, the clock became more important than the sun. Right? So it's more important that you're looking at your phone for the time, not in line, right, with God's greatest creation. So when I see you can create all the brands you want to in the world. You will never create greater symbols and design than the sun, moon, and stars. You never will, right? Yet we do not live in alignment with the cosmos anymore. And so when we talk about polychronism, we're talking about events. And how do events take place in the sky? When we look at solar eclipse, that's an event. And you would then see indigenous populations planning around those events, right? When we look at ancient Egypt or ancient Kemet, right, and we look at ancient Mayan systems, why are they in alignment with the stars, right? There are certain systems to where they literally utilize the stars as direction, right? So they know this in the back of their hand. They can tell you what northwest, east, south, all of those are, because they're so in alignment that it's embedded into their language, right? And I always make this comparison that, you know, we know the stars in Hollywood, not the stars in the sky.
Right.
You understand me? Like, we're so disconnected that they got man staring at the ground more than he is looking at the sky to even ideate ideas to get inspiration from God's design. Right? And so if you want to become more creative, go offline and go into God's museum, which is the world. Right? I promise you, online you will be influenced by things already created. You understand me? offline you will be influenced by things divinely created. And in that, you start to develop original ideas, right? You start to connect things. You allow your mind to refresh, to declutter. That is the best thing that you can possibly have. And one of the reasons I also even want to go to Ethiopia, of course, you know, they operate with a time system that's based on the 13 moon calendar, the lunar calendar of the old world, right? This new world is just a world that is based on industrialization and capitalism. But if you want to be healthy and you want a mentally sane and healthy society, you have to change the time systems. We can't continue to operate on these old industrialized factory models and then try to tell people that cognitive behavior therapy is going to save them. And they need to be on time for their session when they're out of time with God.
And I think also
bars. Can we bar it up for a second?
Yeah.
We need a little. Look, I could bar myself up. No.
I think
I got some people back here. Yeah,
I think it was we are an ancient people. Shout out to my brother Omega Axel, who just the other day he got deported from Egypt. And the reason why he got deported from Egypt,
shout out for that.
He's been doing tours, history tours, African history tours in Egypt for the last 15 years. And he got deported from Egypt, and they said that he was a threat to national security. And the reason why he's a threat to national security is because he's teaching the African history of Egypt.
That's a flex.
So he's going to be in Ethiopia with us as well. And one of the things that he taught me is that so the Egyptian priests would observe that 36 deacon stars would appear on the horizon every 10 days. And that's where you get the 10-day decade from, right? And then from that's where you get the 30-day month from. We're coming from people that's been doing this since been doing this. Right. And when you relate that to Abrahamic religion and where we are now, and Coptics and Islam and Judaism, and you look at, for instance, Muslims, you guys pray 5 times a day, right? The Coptics pray 7 times a day. I got that right. Ethiopians, if I got it wrong, then put something in the comments. They pray 7 times a day, right? And the reason why they pray 7 times a day is to honor the changing of every single time period, right? From midnight all the way to sunrise, etc., right? And if you delve a little deeper into that and you look at Bilal and then you look at Prophet Muhammad and you look at their relationship, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and you look at their relationship, you'll see that actually Bilal was trafficked from Mecca during the Swahili trafficking of people, the Swahili coastal slave trade, and he was trafficked from Ethiopia to Mecca, and Bilal was Muhammad's OG, peace be upon him. So it's not a coincidence that a Coptic Christian originally, when he was taken from Ethiopia, to get to a Islam practicing man who was the first man to sing the first azan, I think. Is it called azan when you sing the call to prayer? I think it's
Adan.
Adan. He was the first man. Bilal was the first man to sing the first Adan, as far as I'm aware. And now you have Ethiopians that were predominantly white, and they pray in exactly the same, the Coptics pray in exactly the same fashion as the Muslims pray. They stand up, they get down, they do that the same amount of times, and they pray nearly the same amount of times. And so when you look at true Christianity, you're actually looking at true Islam, you're actually looking at true Judaism, you're looking at the truth. Now when I'm in Atlanta and my friends are saying, hey, do you want to go to church on Sunday? There's wristbands. There's wristbands, there's a VIP section, there's a da-da-da-da. I'm like, oh, okay, so you guys, when it comes to these Diaspora Wars, which we're going to speak about, I don't really think that fully exist anyway. I think Europeans are happy every time they see us doing this stupid shit. But when we, excuse my language, but when we come to these Diaspora Wars, and you speak to these people who are saying, well, we are Christian, and we don't need any validation for our Christianity because they were practicing Christianity in Ethiopia however many hundreds of years ago. But I'm like, you don't know what the Christianity in Ethiopia even looks like.
Right.
You're trying to relay something that is a capitalist product to a spiritual system, a scientific spiritual system, based on just basic things like, especially as you're aging, getting up and getting down. It's perfect for your digestive system. It's perfect for the flow of blood to your brain. And yet you're sitting down in a suit, pulled up in a Rolls Royce, got a wristband to give a tithe, and then afterwards you're going to go and drink liquor. I don't know what that's got to do with Christianity.
I don't either. You actually mentioned something perfect, because my brother, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, whose first name was True Islam, wrote a book on Bilal, right? And this book is called Bilal al-Sudan, and it's Islam, Africa, and the Afrocentricity, right? And Dr. Wesley gives a really great breakdown, right, of Islamic origins in Africa, right? And he specifically challenges the idea that Africa was peripheral to the Islamic civilization, and that Africa was present at the birth of Islam, that Ethiopia, Abyssinia sheltered the first Muslims during the first Hijrah, that African peoples were integrated in the early Islamic history, and the Red Sea connected Arabia and the Horn of Africa more than it separated them. Then he goes down, because when he does his books, he does a thorough documentation right after he gives his thesis on an idea. And I think what we're disconnected is that he explained how essentially Islam and the concepts of Islam, right, were exported outside of Africa, and then those ideas essentially, you understand me, came back to Africa as Islam, right? And it's important to understand the context of everything that you do, right? Like when we say Arabia, we're talking about white or Middle Eastern. You understand me? Africa is considered separate from that. But when you dive into the history and you look at, you know,
ancient Yemen.
Yeah, ancient Yemen. And then you going up to right there, the Horn of Africa and Northern Africa and things of that nature. Then you also get a history of the Moorish people, right? And then you start breaking that down, and you realize is that I think it's called Amaranga. I'll probably get that wrong. I'll look it up in a second, but it means free people. And these were people that was connected by ethnicity and beliefs in the same God and practices and rituals. And so even when we look at Africa and we look at a lot of the places that had developed, right, it was because these were specific people that were sharing knowledge throughout Africa,
like
in developing systems.
Amazing people
Amazigh,
and the Berbera.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so this is why even when we say the word Africa today, this is a new word, right?
Right, Afrikaners.
This is not a word that ancient peoples would have described themselves by, because they would have broken down their description of who they are based on, right, their land and their geography, unless they're like a Moorish people that are a part of a greater identity of people that are not geographically based, right? So you might have found some of them in Spain, you might have found some of them in Africa, you might have found some of them all throughout Asia or wherever they may have been, because they had a coordination based on shared beliefs, identity, right, and systems, which I think is more powerful than anything. When I go to Africa, I can say I'm an African, but what does that really mean if I have no connection to any of the rituals or specific peoples of a land? If you go to Ghana, how many languages are spoken out there? Right. So to say, oh, I'm from Ghana, but you don't know any of the languages, you don't have any connection to the root of those families, you don't know what they eat and why they eat it, right? The stories and the roots and where they come from. Those things matter when you say you are a people, right? So for me, this is why when it even comes to the identity of being a, you know, Malcolm X called us Afro-Americans, right? But when it comes to even being an American, I used to, when I was younger, think about American as like a dirty word. I never liked the idea, because when I thought American, I would think white. But as you go deeper and you understand, first of all, it's North America and South America. These are continents. And before white people ever existed on this continent, it's Native American people that were here, that were building great systems and civilizations tens of thousands of years before any of the settler colonizers had arrived and became a scourge on this place. And then everything about America actually represents indigenous people, right? We're in California. That's not a white name.
Queen Khalifa.
You understand me? So if I go to Africa and say I'm a Californian, you're going to connect that, somebody who's ignorant may connect that to be like, oh, that's a white thing. How? That's Californian. If I say I'm from Mississippi, that's a Mississippian. These are Native American names, right? I am actually calling upon an ancestral line, right, that is deeply rooted and connected to this land. Same thing with Chicagoans, same thing with most of the places throughout America, and almost with basketball teams and things of that nature. We have to remember, and you never want to disconnect the actual indigenous roots of this place, because then you actually lose the power. Because America is a very powerful place, and powerful people have settled here for thousands upon thousands of years. But when you center white Americans, right, and you put them in the middle of history and everything surrounds them, then you lose the truth about this place. And that's what happens when their time here is very short in comparison to the actual larger picture of Americas. Like, we don't even think about South Americans at all when we talk about America. We're talking about actually the coordination of 50 plus states that call themselves the United States of America. That's one treaty, you know what I mean, throughout time that developed the Constitution, and they formed that coalition, but that is not the history of America. Right? And I think that that's where we actually have to take back the power, so that when somebody is saying that, yeah, I'm from America, it's not, oh no, do you don't know who you're really from? Like, no. I just told you that my peoples have been here at least 500 years. And in those 500 years, we have settled, we have went to war, right? Like, those same Americans, when you go look at the what's my favorite war with John Horse? Yeah, the Seminole War. That was a 40 plus year war that ended 2 years before, right, the Civil War, right? Then you had a brother that had a corridor where he called 20 to 40,000 soldiers, I'm going to look it up, where they was ready to go to war with America. They was already resurrections or insurrections, rather, that was happening. Abraham Lincoln joined on to what we was already doing. So we are a warrior people, an inventive people. Those who were free, these were the ones that were the scholars. They were the abolitionists. You know what I mean? Frederick Douglass was funded by other free black people, right? That were whalers, and they had money. Like, there's such a deep root history. I just learned about my great-grandfather and his participation in making sure that black people could buy homes wherever they want to in America. That's a part of history I can look at and say I'm proud. My great aunt was the first black woman who was a chairwoman in NAACP, but was kicked out because she audited their books. She didn't like how they was moving. That's a history I can root in and say I actually get a lot from them, the way they operated. You don't want to disrespect your ancestors by skipping over 500 years and saying that, okay, the stuff that happened here is not as important than me finding an abstract of what I may be connected to, right? Because you actually cannot, unless you're doing genealogy, you're not pinpointing root to tribes to actually find what was in your blood from a ritual level, from what they ate, how they moved, how they thought, the philosophies that go behind. Because I promise you, when you actually go look on the continent, you might find things you don't agree with. So now, are you picking and choosing which part you are from based on what you agree with and what you like? Right. So that's why I just think I think it actually makes us better when we travel, when we go to America, that we go whole. Right? Not saying I'm looking for myself, but I know who I am, and this is how I can participate. Right? This is how I can benefit, right? Versus you're going to be sold your identity everywhere you go. When I went to Egypt, they was like, oh, black Americans, y'all are the gods. But they was only saying that
they want
so
money.
They can sell me something.
Yeah.
I know when the white people come, they be like, y'all the true gods of Egypt.
Right. The Arayans.
Y'all not slick. You pulling out that Nubian bag when you know, because you see me and like, I know what's going to get a tip from him.
The fact that my friend can be banned from Egypt under the guise of a threat to national security for teaching the African history of Egypt just shows where we are as a people. And
well,
I
they're
think
smart for banning them because it is a threat to national security.
I mean, that's a lot of money for them.
In an ideology that is based on a connection of Egypt, but we're not talking about Egypt, right? Let's talk about Sudan. Let's talk about ancient Kemet, right? Let's talk about the Nubian civilizations,
right? The Dogon people, the people that actually were there before the invaders came, and then you know,
nobody ever said Imhotep was a white man. Come on, father civilization. Now you want to make fun of the Hotep,
right?
But hold on, you
right?
Understand me?
Right.
And now we got a whole ass society and not enough Hoteps. You know what I'm saying? You
need a button when you say something like that. I think the other thing is that I mean, you just made fun of the Hotep thing, which I get called a Hotep often,
you do?
Right? I get called a Hotep often, but
you and Umar the king of Hoteps,
is the fact that nobody would make fun of Islam to the degree where I would say, oh yeah, he's one of those peace be upon yous.
Yeah, that's too long. That's why it's not cool enough.
Right.
A shorter version.
But it's the fact that
when growing up, they would say Muslims. If you was conscious, because black media will only narrate a weak depiction of a black
type.
man. And so it was like, oh, you kicking knowledge. What you trying to kick knowledge?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
anytime I would have intelligent discussions in the hood, oh, you trying to kick knowledge?
You're one of the Muslims.
Yeah, but the difference is that, you know, we fought, slap, shot, do all kind of crazy stuff. So that quickly erased this whole idea that Muslims ain't cool, because when I grew up in Oakland, Muslims were the gangsters. I'm going to keep it 100.
Right.
They owned the businesses. They were coordinated. They operated like a military. They was handing out the jobs. You understand me? They was involved in the politics of the square of what was going on. So it's like the problem is that the disciplined, militant, conscious black man has never been narrated in Hollywood. So the imagery of him is these short depictions that you get,
like a hotep,
right?
But nobody
not even that corny.
Nobody would ever go and call a guy who is on his stuff an amen. You know, oh, he's one of those amens, right? But they call people who are politically conscious, healthy, and essentially historians. They call them hoteps as a almost to try and make fun of the fact that they are not in alignment with the status quo. So
now we do got to be honest though. Some of the brother doing a little too much.
No, but listen, not everybody's nature boy, right? For whatever
hopes nobody. That's stupid ass.
For whatever reason, when they were doing this,
I mean weirdo in the LA sense.
No. Listen. Personally, it has been. I've been on social media for 15 years. There's been no scandal. There's been no illicit baby moms. There's been no I've attacked anybody. There's been none of that, just because I'm disciplined to be on my stuff for long enough. I think that should garner some respect where people wouldn't even make fun of. But I saw recently.
I don't even think that deep. I don't even think you need to be perfect. I think that it's like when Obama became president, he was like an image of when you do everything right, right? And because that was the image, do the next person need to be perfect in order to get in there? Or can you get a Donald Trump type black man in there who almost does none of the things perfect and still get an opportunity?
Right.
It's that whole thing where we know that in every other category, niggas ain't perfect. You understand me? The question is, do you give grace? Right? I'm not going for perfection. I'm gonna need grace. I grew up in Oakland, California, and St. Louis. You understand me? Like, I grew up in a very imperfect conditions that I had to unlearn a lot of things. So excuse me if I fuck up on the journey of trying to be a better man, right? And that's why I do like, you know, the whole idea of when Jesus talks about, you know, ye who hasn't sinned, throw the first stone. I think that if we truly live by that, we'll have a better world where we're giving each other grace, but we're also helping each other strive for better. And if it becomes a pattern, that's your character that's different, because now I know that's you. There's no grace giving because you ain't learning.
Right. I think, you know, 2026, we're still speaking now and again about Diaspora Wars, which we say doesn't exist, but it still exists. It's still part of discourse. There's still a bunch of people who want to attack a bunch of people who are trying to do their best, whether they're in Africa or whether they're in North America. And I think where a lot of people were brought over from Africa to be enslaved, a lot of Black Americans, indigenous roots or you know, mixed indigenous and African roots want to distance themselves from that history. So they're like, nah, I ain't African, I'm American, which is okay, fine. I would implore you to learn your indigenous languages and start partaking in your indigenous rituals, whether that's you're from, you know, the north of America and you are, you know, killing whales and then, you know, eating the whale blubber and like the Inuits do, and you're fermenting seal and you're doing that type of stuff, or you're fishing, or you're speaking a language that is Cherokee, or you go and get some of that stuff, because it's difficult to tell me that you are of this, but you don't know anything about that other than you know that you're of that.
But that's why, and the reason that it's not there is because it hasn't been celebrated. We, as Black Americans, right, when we even look at Pan-Africanism, a lot of that comes from America, right? Because at that time, we were distancing ourselves from white America. Yeah.
Marcus Garvey.
And we were distancing ourselves from white America, and we were finding a pathway to figure out our identity and our belonging. but we didn't go deeper into where we already are, right? And sharing that sense. Most people don't know about the Maroons. They don't know about Geechee. They don't know about these different societies that existed. You understand me? Like, you go to Jamaica, everybody don't know about Nanny and the Maroons. You understand me? Certain stories are not shared, so you're not developing that love for where you're from, right? Somebody, they may love Haile Selassie way more than they love Nanny and the Maroons, but you can't tell me that Nanny ain't do more for Jamaica than Haile. Right. So, but that's the same thing with America, is that we don't know our history. And when we do start talking about our history, we first jump to Africa. The question is, start here, then go outside the home, right? Because then when you start here, you can then connect and understand why things were done here. But when it's saying that I'm more interested in the history of Ghana than I am American history, now you don't know what's in your blood.
Right.
You understand me? You don't know what makes you you. You don't know what your great-great-great-grandfather did and what he went through. You don't know if he studied hoodoo, and that's in your family. Right. When we talk about Black Christianity, it's a derivative of hoodoo. Right. It's a remixology of Black American culture and Christianity, which is why we don't have the lineage, because we're disconnected from any lineage from Ethiopia. And religion changes over time based on the people and their own rituals. So we really Christianize hoodooism, right? And now you get a lot of these Baptist churches and things of that nature. Right. But then you go to the root after understanding the fruit. Right. And the fruit is the representation of the best part of the tree. You understand me? Understand yourself, then understand everybody else. Do we know the origin stories when it comes to our political past and our activism path? Do we know all the secret societies that we form? People talk about Masonry, but don't know the actual history between the Black Masons that was in America and how that shaped and influenced America, right? Like, we're not actually getting deep enough into our contribution into what is the most powerful country in the world.
Or Republicans.
Right. Or even the American dream.
Right.
The American dream, Jewish people use Black people to push the American dream to the world. And this is a documentary about this on the men who invented Hollywood. It's a really great documentary. But they understood that America did not have this identity. They created the idea of the American dream by putting it into movies and scenes. It did not exist in reality first. It existed in the movies first. But then they understood that white people can't be the representation of culture. You gotta be Black, because their culture is actually fun, cool. They got the music, the jazz, everything else. How about we take Black culture and then we sell that to white people, but they would only buy it from us.
Right.
So they actually shared in the idea of the American dream became so big that Americans started copying what was on the movies. Right. And then that became exported, so people actually thought that was reality. So when people like Malcolm X go out in the world and he challenging, being like, no, that's not reality. The American so-called Negro here in America is suffering under white supremacy.
The American
right?
nightmare.
And what they're showing you all is not true. They're showing you an American dream, but we live in an American nightmare. When Dr. Martin Luther King said there's two sides of America, there's this America, then there's the other America. You know what I'm saying? We was breaking the programming that Hollywood was trying to push to the world, which were psychological operations to control the narrative. And then they disconnected us from our own roots, to where a person got to go take African American studies to understand their history, because it's not shared in their family.
I mean, it's deep, man. I think also
Hotep, my brother.
Hotep. I think I'll say Ashe.
Ashe.
I think also.
Hey, when Shaka say it's deep, you done went somewhere.
It's deep. And the reason why I think that and what I was alluding to before is that actually Africans were already traveling here and trading before all of that stuff happened. And now if you say that you're not that, then you're actually cutting out a big part of your trade history as well.
Right.
Because the fact of the matter is that Africans had kingdoms here that were based on trade with indigenous people, and Africans deemed it great to come here before Europeans deemed it great to come here. And there's a whole shared history, and there's a shared narrative, and there's a shared trade narrative that we need to actually rekindle. We need to reignite that trade narrative where Afro-Caribbeans, African Americans, Black Americans, and Africans have this transatlantic triangle that stops becoming a transatlantic triangle and actually it just becomes a straight line from Black America to Africa, from Black Caribbean to Africa, from Black South America, from Brazil back to Africa. There's just a flight that has opened up now for the first time in contemporary history. It's a flight called Air Peace. Now, as a Ghanaian, as a Nigerian, you can fly direct to Barbados, you can fly direct to Antigua.
Yeah.
So you don't need a visa, because a lot of the time what the visas are is a way of Europeans spying on black people moving between black economies, right? So you don't need that visa anymore to fly between these two economies. And for all of my African-American brothers and sisters watching this, and this is, you know, a great reason for you guys to go to InvestFest as well. We're there every year. We're speaking up the things at InvestFest. You have more similarities than you do have differences with Africans. You cannot say that you have more similarities with Europeans, with Chinese, with Arabs than you do with Africans. You just can't say it, because from the music, from the food, from the ancient trade agreements that existed, to now say, so I posted something on Juneteenth actually. It was a Hebrew Israelite, I think he's one of the famous ones, speaking about he ain't got nothing to do with Africa, don't know nothing about Africa. But yet at the same time, if we're even speaking about Hebrew Israelite and we're speaking about Hebrew comes from the Kibantu language that was coming out of ancient Congo. If you look at the things that govern what a language is, and you compare Hebrew language to Kibantu language, it's exactly the same thing. It's just then Europeans, basically, the Ashkenazis basically put some zhuzh on it, they remixed Arabic and they came up with what is now modern day Hebrew. But the reality is that actually, if you say asar means, in Hebrew, it means it was, or it was made. I think that's the definition of it. If you say Salah in Kibantu, it's the exact same thing. And there's a bunch of them. I'm not a linguist to that degree where I know, but there's a guy called Nebi Kefas who speaks about it. He has a YouTube channel and he speaks about it, and he breaks down the story of Jesus, the story of Muhammad, the story of Hebrew, the story of Arabic, the story of Christianity, and he puts them all together and he says, all of these came out of Africa, and these are the times and these are the dates. And so I think where we just need to get over the hump of the Diaspora Wars, yes, African Americans toiled, Indigenous Americans toiled, and they bled and they sweat for this country to build what this country now is. And Caribbeans and Africans who are now coming over here and are benefiting from those labors should honor that and have reverence for it and respect it. At the same time, the future is Africa, and the systemic future is Africa, where now you actually have Norway flying in their own food during the World Cup because they see in America as a third world country where you can't even get proper food. You have Norway, a white nation, flying in food to eat because they don't trust the oranges here. You have Orange County here, right here. They don't trust. So now you're having, it's actually flipping. And where I'm driving through LA and I'm seeing autonomous cars, right? And I'm seeing autonomous, what are they called now? Delivery services, are little robots that are going down the street, right? All of these minerals coming from Congo, by the way. But I'm seeing these things happening, but yet you can't even have basic food to eat. You can't even have basic food to eat to the degree that a Norwegian team are flying in food just so they can have natural food to eat. It's like, okay, cool. Are we going to look at that as a problem that requires a solution, or are we just going to look at that as, we're just going to keep eating this food and dying here? And I think that where you have natural non-GMO foods in Africa, where you have natural non-GMO foods in Panama and Colombia and Brazil, etc., is time for Black Americans, and this is why I started a fruit company in the first place, it's time for Black Americans to get back on God's timing, and it starts with the food, and it starts with fruits with seeds. You cannot have an organic watermelon, it doesn't have seeds inside. You just can't do it. You know, when you go to Jamaica or you go to Ghana and you eat a mango, the thing just hits different. Yep. You can actually feel it working inside of your own body.
Well, I 100% believe that. I think you said a lot of key things there, and I think one of them deals with respect, right? First of all, this idea that everybody online is going to have respectful discourse, right, is ridiculous. Because if you're looking for that, then you're always going to find a problem, right? There's always going to be some ignorant Africans. There's always going to be some ignorant niggas. You understand me? To give you what you're looking for on both sides. So that's not it. It's more so about rising above the emotions. Because really, I don't care about none of those things. What I care about is more so us having power. And when you talk about, when I do go to Africa, the reason I do stand as a proud American, if you will. But for me, that doesn't mean the same thing as somebody else say it. Right? I'm connecting a history that is very pro-black in that stance. Right? But I'm more so saying I know who I am, right? I know what informs my identity, right? And now I'm coming here to work with you, right? And when I stand in front of people, whether they're presidents, they're leaders, whether we're at the UN, no matter where it's at, they all respect that because what's truly valuable about me is the way I think, right? Our influence, our connections, our culture, it's the differences that make us valuable to us, not really what's exactly the same. See, a lot of times we want like-minded, but we need open-minded. You understand me? Like-minded, you can be surrounded by people who think like you and have you stuck in this bubble. But the question is, when do you have open-minded people that can help build with you? When, as we talk about respect, that's where the dialogue has to, first shift to a level of understanding that we're not going to get that from across the board. There's always going to be ignorance and lack of understanding. Right, but do we have respect at the leadership level, right? And what does respect look like for Black Americans to go into a country and build? We talked about it earlier. Like I would love to see Diallo get even more respect for what he's done over there in Ghana. I would love to see that, right? Even the work that Speed have done. It is not to say that other people aren't doing it, but our contribution a lot of times is so massive, and I think sometimes people don't even want to give us credit, because it feels like we're taking credit for other things that happened as well, when it's actually saying, no, add on to what we're doing. You understand me? Because this is the best way to get this thing done, and we happen to be some of the best conduits for the message, for the narrative, for the exposure, right? When it comes to activism, we are the best in the world, right? Like we push other people movement. Black American freedom gives everybody else their freedom. And I'm not just talking about Black people. You understand me? The struggles of people around the world is directly connected to our framework and how we show people to fight against oppressive regimes, right? And empire, if you will. So it's more so about, everybody that I've met that's African, you understand me? We all have a level of respect and appreciation for each other. But now when we're talking about doing business with government, because when we're talking about food, right, you have two different connections. You have the farmers that are out here, the land that we do own, because we do own a lot of land that's out here, which is still discoordinated within Black America itself. I particularly did the documentary, right, with the president of the Black Farmers Association, who has gotten reparations for Black people in America, and he represents tens of thousands of farmers on purpose, because these are not things that we particularly looking at. I had a conversation with a brother yesterday who just bought his second prison. He did 11 years, and he bought 19 acres. He want to turn that into a facility that is going to be productive for the culture. Now he needs help raising that money. That's an opportunity. Then when I go over to Africa, what do you have that is the most value? Everybody uses the buzzword value addition. How do we do value addition, value addition, value addition? Okay, well, what do they want to get? They want to get it into the American market. I went to Nigeria, I went to go visit the pineapple farm and got a great breakdown from our brother that's out there who has one of the largest ones in Nigeria. Okay, that's an investment opportunity, but what's bigger? He wants to get into the American market. He wants to be able to sell bromide from it, right? He wants to be able to sell supplements. We have a lot of when we talk about that 2.1 trillion spending power, they look at that and they look at the liquidity of the American market and saying that our product is only valuable if we can get people to buy it. But what's happening is that they're taking raw resources, being distracted, then the value addition is happening in another country that turns it into a brand, then sells it back to them at 10 times the price. So who are the best influencers on the planet and cultural movers? Right? You go look at the NBA, the NFL, entertainment, Hollywood, you understand me, the curators and things of that nature, and that economy is coming from here. And then you're saying that, okay, let's then do business with private government so that we can also be able to turn these into products, turn these into brands, right? Now we have factories over here, we have factories over there. You have all of these big brand names people are going to goddamn a Kim Kardashian to go start something. How come they not going to a Speed and saying, can you represent this factory and this product? You understand me? For all the pineapples around the world. You feel me? Why is not Nigeria not the greatest export of pineapples? Why are they getting it from somewhere else when the demand is higher than what they can produce because there's a lack of investment, right? But then if you connect with somebody like me, that say, well, you have a dense audience, you have a good reputation with the people, you have community, right? And you also represent new media because you can also a platform for distribution. Let's do a deal with you. The problem is there's a lot of old models. They still don't look at Black Americans as entrepreneurs. And I know this from like traveling and being there in the rooms to where we have to control our image because when you come here and it's a multi-family office, right, and it's a facility of people who are SEC regulated, that do deals, that handle infrastructure, that do wealth management, that do business and have collectively, 100 years of business knowledge. I'm around here every single day and I'm learning something I would have never known, right, if me and Keena didn't have a gym session on a random Tuesday, right? Like, so now I can understand why there's a huge gap because the capitalism has made some masters and experts at industrialization. We were all born in schools that prepared us for a world of industrialization. So it's more so saying that you guys are perfectly positioned and we have all the resources. Now, can we create a bridge that produces an economy? And if you don't just look at the creator or the influencer and you have that ranked low, right, and not understanding that value, right, now you don't want to do business with that influencer, right? Yet that's the one that could probably increase the GDP of your economy 10x. Because if we 2.1 trillion spending power, now how much is the global GDP or the total GDP of Africa?
It's around that.
Exactly. It's almost, it's not
I think
exactly
it's
the same.
3
I think it's
trillion.
around like 3.5 or something.
Yeah, I think it's like 3.4, 3.6.
So think about how powerful that is. You understand me? And we are only a group of 40-something million people, right? And that's where the relationship has to be understood to be like, actually, we have what each other need. We can actually cut out the middleman. The middleman is all the other cultures that don't care about your future. They just want to do business with you. Then you have the top, where you have, in America, you have the boule, the 1%, the Divine Nine,
Africa,
those who
we
went to
have the
college, got degrees. College, you have the same. A lot of them came to America and got educated. And then they export that same mentality back over there with elitism.
Right.
Then you have the Pan-African that is more pro-Black and socially conscious, that want to create and disrupt the system of neocolonialism, right? Then you have the average person who really is only taking in what the government gives them, and they're fed the average narratives like the 85% in America. So then you have the youth that are rising that are average age 19 years old, and in some countries 15 to 14 years old, who have low employment, right? The lack of awareness, opportunity to make money on social media because they're not even allowing creators to monetize on those platforms because they haven't even created mechanisms to be able to tax it, right? Now you have them behind, even though that it can be the future. I think it is inevitable, but what future is it? Is it a future where it's disproportionately invested by, you looking at the East Asians, or you looking at China, you looking at the Albanians and Indians, right, whites, Jewish people, or is it one where we're directly connected, the diaspora plus Africa? And I think when the conversation evolves the way you think about Africa, where it's like Africa is a landmass, who are we talking about? We're actually talking about the mentality of the Kwame Tourists, right? Or we talking about the mentality of the Traorés, right? If that is the mentality that is narrated throughout Africa, because he is the president of Africa, then that is different as we're doing business, because we're doing with somebody who is socially conscious and not just somebody who is putting money before the people, right? And so otherwise, to end this long rant of a conversation, otherwise, Africa could have already been developed by elite Africans. But what incentive do they have, right, to distribute wealth when they benefit, right, from the uneven distribution of wealth? When I can drive my cars whenever I want, I can buy me a military to take me through somewhere. It don't matter if the roads are uneven, because I can just get me a bigger truck. You understand me? I can do whatever I want. What incentive do I have to try to create a middle class?
The African elite are agents for the parasitic Europeans.
Damn.
That's the reality. Like, they are agents, the black bourgeoisie in Africa, as I've said before, Frantz Fanon speaks about this. They're not even a real bourgeoisie class, because a bourgeoisie class are entrepreneurial. They go and they foster trade agreements that are beneficial for their people, and then they take money off the top, right? The black bourgeoisie in Africa take money from the people, get loans that are supposed to be given to the people, and then steal it for their own pocket, right? So I would say most elites in Africa, most leaders in Africa are just agents for parasites, European parasites. So when you have a man like Julius Macron, the leader of France, coming over and saying he's the real Pan-African, but he's shouting at people and saying, hey, be quiet, to heads of state, and speaking to heads of state. And when you have heads of state coming over to America and being treated like little schoolboys, right?
That's
and when
the one that got the little ugly wife, right?
Yeah. And when it's always there.
That's why he angry.
Right,
if
of course.
If you woke up to a vampire every single day, I'd be pissed off too.
I mean,
I want to go invade somebody else's land just so I can be away from her.
There's a lot of men like that out there who have low self-esteem, and they get with crazy looking women just because they have low self-esteem and they want to control
that's
them.
dangerously unfortunate.
Why are you controlling the entire resources of a country when you can't sit down and tell me what the economic plan is for the country, right? All you're doing is making side deals and skimming off the top. And so where you look at, for instance, Haiti, right? Haiti is a shining light for everybody. And even if you look at the Juneteenth flag, it's the Haitian flag, basically. It's the Haitian flag, right? Haiti gave enough money to Simon Bolivar so he could go and liberate Bolivia, Colombia, and Ecuador. That's why all the flags have the blue and the red in there, right? You have now an AES Traoré who's getting his money together and getting his people together. And I hope at some point that he will then start providing money for revolutionary movements in different African countries. Because if you look at NVIDIA, right, they've got a valuation of, I don't know, 5.1 trillion. Africa doesn't have a valuation of 5 trillion, right? The entire continent of Africa is 3 trillion, right? When you look at Apple, right, 4 trillion, 4 point something trillion, right? Apple has a greater valuation than Nigeria, the GDP of Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa, and Ethiopia put together, right? So you have startup companies that have only existed for 20 years having more purchasing power than the entire nation states in Africa, right? And this is why we need to do business, because at the same time, we are not controlling the market. We're not controlling the price of cocoa. We're not controlling the price of gold. We're not controlling any of these prices. And as I said to you before when we were speaking in Atlanta, I would much rather, because everybody goes to Africa is stealing, I would much rather African Americans, Afro-Brazilians, Afro-Caribbeans, and our greater diaspora are coming back to Africa and making deals to be able to control our economy and control our resources. Because the labor is there. The people are there. Africa's 60 to 70% unemployed, and you have 70% of the population that are under the age of 18. So it is a fertile ground to create all of these things, but yet we continue to follow. We don't have a leadership problem in Africa. We have a followership problem. Because why are we following the same people that are selling us out all the time? Those people should have been locked up and been killed and been whatever, right? And where we are focused so much on religion, where you have so many, we don't need more churches, we need more factories, right? We know that, but it's still happening. We'll still build more churches because you have scamming ass pastors who are taking auntie's last city or auntie's last naira. Right, they're giving them the miracle of
making people walk.
They're giving them the miracle of walk to the church. that's the miracle.
Bank, walk to the bank.
Walk to the bank. Every last dollar, every last franc, CFA from these aunties who are working in the markets, hustling, that they don't spend on food and they're not spending on their family, is going into the church, right? When you have an abundance of church, I'm speaking about Jamaica, right? Jamaica has more churches per square mile than anywhere else in the entire earth. That shows that Jamaica is broken. How are you having more churches than you're having factories? How are you having a murder rate that is astronomical? It might have come down now, but how are you having a murder rate that is astronomical at the same time as you have a place full of churches that is supposed to bring peace to you? Clearly, there's an issue here. And we are having children that are being indoctrinated, are being brainwashed. That was why it was interesting to even watch Sinners and see their perspective on hoodoo, which obviously is indigenous cultures, it's really Ifa and animism. That's what it really is. Hoodoo, voodoo, Vodun, Benin, Yoruba. It's really us believing that everything has life. And if everything has life, then everything has value. So why are we killing our brothers in the street? Why are we devaluing each other in the street? And why are we speaking about our women like they're some kind of commodity? Personally, I am now starting to see this ridiculous. I would say that I believe in polygyny, but I only believe in polygyny if you can support your partner. Or polyandry, sisters, if you got a few husbands and you want to support them. I believe in that if you can support them. What the hell is this put my relationship online? Look at how many wives I've got shit going on. Like, you are now using black bodies, again, as a commodity to try and show people how you can stunt on them because you got 4 or 5 people that you're having sex with. All right, cool. We all have sex with people. How are you showing me that black economy and black wealth and you look at all of this dysfunctional polygamy that we've got. Let's be honest, right? You've got co-parenting. You've got women who are now on their 3rd child with their 3rd baby father. You now got men who are on their 5th child with their 4th baby mother, right? And all of this money is in different households all across different states. It's not centralized in one location where you have 3 adults all putting a salary or all putting the energy of a business into one household. Now you have enough to put your children through college, build your own schools. Everybody was clowning Dr. Umar for so many years. Where's the school? Where's the school? Well, now the school's built. But it's funny how the people who are clowning him don't have a school for themselves. It's funny how the people who are clowning him and the people who are clowning this connection between Africa also don't have 100 acres of land. Where is your land? They did a number on us when they separated us from the land. They told us to close our eyes and they gave us the Bible, right? And when we opened our eyes, they took the land. We still haven't taken the land back. And we need to get back to Africa and we need to take the land back. We need to get back to places in Mississippi, places in the Caribbean and take the land back so that we can create a value.
Not to cut your wisdom, but even when we look at land distribution in Africa, it's different in every place, right? Because then you have like the kings and the royal families on their governance over the land. Then you have the government, right? So a lot of this stuff, kind of what I learned is it's not as easy as even the government wanting to do something, because then like in Uganda, you have the king where the land is under his sovereign rule at the same time, right? And so it's more so, I think, when we use the word Africa, which is a very big word, but it's more so about you just going there and creating connections with the people and actually understanding the lay of the land, right? Because when you go out there, you can go to Ghana, right? And of course, you got to do it correctly, but you can, and they do their contracts in like 100 years, right? But you can go there and have it set up in a way to where you can go meet people and they'll give you land so that you can develop, right? And you can get that put in your name, but of course then you need to understand how it works with contractors. Because as we talk about polychronism, you understand me? They don't think about time the same when you start talking about deadlines. That's going to cost
you for a long time.
Yeah. They like, and then the more you try to push a deadline, the less they want to do it. And the more they go haggle with you on the price. So if you don't understand the culture of the people, how they operate, how they think, right? You really have to understand that in order to get things done, because you come maybe with let's say a Western mind where you like, I want to get this done in 1 year's time. For them, the concept of this 1 year, it's not even something they worrying about. It's like, 1 year, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see.
Right.
Right. So you're going to end up having.
I need 6 seasons.
Yeah. I went out there and there's a brother who had a whole island and he couldn't finish the project. And it's like understanding the lay of the land and also how to set up infrastructure so that things can go more efficient based on what you're even expecting. Right. There's so much that goes into this idea that we need to start breaking down the details of the business, right? Because the concept of going to Africa, you might as well treat it like going to Paris at this point, right? It's more so about, if you're going to do business, be a business person. Understand how business operates. There's a brother who famously set up, what is the toilets that's outside, what they call it?
Portaloos.
Yeah, the porta potties outside. And he made millions of dollars just going over there and looking at something that was needed of value that we may take for granted as a convenience, right? And then shipping them out there. Because you may go to places in the villages where they don't have any toilets, right? Like, you might not think about it, some of these places are living in a very old way, right? There's no piping. There's literally no toilets. You go 1 hour out of Ghana, and these people, some of them have never shitted in the toilet. They in the woods. You feel me? And then you may go to some beautiful place, and you'll literally still see people running around naked, right? It may seem like, you know, we show when we go over there a lot of the modernities of Africa, but when you get into the tribes, they're still living very ancient and tribal. You know, and when you can go into a lot of these places, and then when you build the infrastructure, like Elon is go Starlink the hell out of Africa. But
he's doing it.
Who is his competition to give them Wi-Fi, to give them internet access and things of that nature? And if you don't do that, you may be mad at the colonizer for coming in and adding technological development. But how come it was 50 years before that, nobody did nothing, right? Because of all of this corruption. And then when the way you're doing business is outdated, because you're giving people contracts for $50 million. Now, this person that got the contract was a cousin of the president. Then the president gave him the contract. He then goddamn took his 20% off top, gave this person the money, and now nothing gets built.
I think that's the problem, though, with democracy. It's imported. And where you're speaking about tribes, essentially what you're speaking about is ethnic nations. And parts of those nations are underdeveloped. Parts of those nations are not developed. And parts of those nations are overdeveloped. So if you look at, for instance, some of the Ashanti people in Ghana, for instance, you go into Kumasi and you go out, you're going to be rolling with the people who don't have the toilets, right? Then you come a bit in closer to the capital, and then you've got people who are still developing, and then you come into the capital, you've got the palace, you've got all of this stuff, right? These are nations that, and all nations develop on different time, but I think where nations are not developing because they're developing on a linear Eurocentric Westphalian system, that is where we now find issue, where you said before, where you can go to the king and get land in a particular area and create a JV, a joint venture, and build something on that land, and then you're going to have to give him, for 100 years, and then you have to give him 15% of whatever that is in perpetuity, but you don't have to pay for the land, but then you have to have an agreement with the contractor, etc., etc. Those systems exist and need further developing so that they can become more sophisticated.
Right.
Whereas capitalism, it seems, is hyper-developing, but at the same time, it's destroying ecology, it's destroying spirituality, it's destroying the time in which people would do things, it's destroying the entire ecosystem of why we're getting floods every single year, because you cut down all the trees, right? So at the same time, when you're looking at ethnic nations or groups that are fighting against what the old way was and needs further developing, because we have so many languages in Africa, but those languages don't have words for what's happened. So they still say an English word. So, you know, we would say, nataka kuenda aeroporti. Rather than, there's not a Swahili word for airport as far as I'm aware. Maybe my Swahili is bad. But we throw English words in there because, or French words in there, because we haven't actually got to that stage of development. So there's these nations that still need developing at the same time as you now have capitalism and hyper-development causing what we know now as the xenophobia and the Afrophobia in South Africa. Because the reality is now you have all of the whole of Africa is now looking at South Africa like you are the coons of Africa, right? Damn. And they're looking at South Africa as that. And my name is Zulu. It comes from Shaka Zulu, right? Haven't been to South Africa. And I should go and I should have my own experiences there.
I've been to the Shaka Zulu grave site, Swaziland. You understand me? I did the whole warrior dance. I did the warrior breakdown where you got to do the fighting. It's funny you talk about polygyny because they practice it over there, and the brother's giving us a breakdown on how, you know, you do have to get your wealth up before you can get you a new wife, because each one of them has to have separate homes. Right. You understand me? And they even talked about weed, that you typically wouldn't smoke weed as a warrior until you're like 40 years old. Right, because you got to do your warrior stuff. You want your best years out in the field. You understand me? Not high. And then as you talk about Jamaica, I believe they said it's 2.7 churches every square mile. You understand me? Like, You 100% on that infrastructure. Christianity is deeply rooted there. Everybody's going in those missions, and you have to ask, like, why are you so deeply invested in controlling the spirituality of the people?
Well, look at South Africa as an example. You have
barely got roads.
You have the oldest. You have the last nation in Africa to decolonize, 1994, 1996, South Africa, right? Now you have a group of people who are basically uneducated, ignorant, and funding this June 30th, what are we, June 24th?
But all right, not to cut your wisdom, but you say they're the coons of Africa, but then you say they are the latest to be colonized, and it's more so that they're still young and decolonizing themselves, and they haven't had that much time as other places have had.
No,
with
it's a
being
process.
Free of that.
It's a process for sure. I'm not saying that I can understand someone's pain without accepting their behavior. Right? And where you beating people half to death because they own a little small store and what they're selling is basic toiletries and basic these spaza shops, they're not state capture.
These are psyops. You understand me? Like Winnie Mandela was the true revolutionary.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, she was ready to firebomb stuff. When a kid was killed out there in Soweto, I remember the first place I visited to in Africa was South Africa. I went to the museum, the Apartheid Museum, and I went to Soweto where Nelson Mandela home was, and then you go to the square where the kid was killed and all of the people collectively gathered to fight against the system, and then you see how Nelson Mandela was, used, right, to assuage the people from actually having a more revolutionary stance. And then he was put into place by a lot of the Israeli forces and things of that nature.
But you gotta let me finish my point before people start clipping me and saying that I'm calling South Africans coons.
You had already said that 5 minutes ago.
That's what I was saying. Around. So South Africans have now been seen South Africans have now been seen as the coons of South Africa because of the way that they're treating fellow African brothers with ultimately an anti-Pan-African, because we need to get into Pan-African nationalism. Rather than just Pan-Africanism as a philosophy, actually where are we spending our money, how are we doing business? And they have now been seen as the coons of Africa because of the way that they've been treating other Africans, where state capture was actually white people, Anglo America and all of these corporations capturing the 70 to 80% of the wealth of South Africa, and it's white people and Indian people, but predominantly white people and Americans, Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and all these people that own 80% of your economy. And now what you're going to do is, rather than go fight the people who've got 80%, you're going to go and fight the people who've got 20%, and they ain't even got 20%, they got 5%. And guess what happens? They're marching and they're protesting to shut down these little small stores that the Congolese and the Somalis and the Ethiopians and the Nigerians have, etc., etc. Why? Because these small stores are selling products that the bigger stores that are owned by white people are selling. So they're selling the same product got from China outside of this store, and then what happens? Like you were alluding to the PSYOP before, some people who are paying money, just like during Black Lives Matter, there's always somebody funding it, right? Somebody pays money to get a figurehead or a group of people to now go and fight these people in the street, round them up, send them back, and then where are you going to buy your products from? You're going to buy them from the exact same big corporations that are not of your people, and you're complaining about the fact that there's no jobs. They're not fighting people even for ownership of land. They're not fighting people for ownership of resources. They're not fighting people for sovereignty. They are fighting people for jobs. And who's hiring them?
Yeah.
Who's hiring? They're not fighting for ownership. They're fighting for jobs. And who's hiring them? Now all these people are getting sent back. Our president from Ghana has sent 2 planes back now. And the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Blakwa, has sent 2 planes back now of Ghanaians because Ghanaians were being attacked in the street for starting businesses. They are not fighting Europeans and attacking you. You still have Oronia, which is an all-white town in South Africa.
Right. No, when I went there the first time, I remember almost smacking this white dude, and they was looking at me like I was crazy because white dude must have thought I was one of them, something else. Like, buddy, you got the right one. You feel me? So I went off on it. I'm like, you white devil, this, that. I went full Khalid Muhammad. And they looking in the maze like,
right.
They start slow clapping.
Right. Because
to me, that's normal. To them, I literally became a hero at that moment.
Because they were the last to be colonized. So there's a lot of work to be done. But at the same time, where you have xenophobia, and particularly Afrophobia in South Africa, where it's like, all right, cool. You cannot have a Nigerian Mozambican Miss Black South Africa, but now they've got a deaf white woman who's Miss South Africa, right? You would rather have a white person come into your country illegally, right? And you give them the space to properly get their documentation, start businesses, you'll help them to fuel their businesses. But as soon as it's a black person, it's like, now we need to fight that person. Now these people have been sent back. Now they're like, yo, there's no jobs. Because these were the same people that were employing all of these same people.
South Africa unemployment rate is 32.7%, which is 1 in 3 people looking for a job. You understand me? So even when I was out there, that was one of the biggest things. There was this protest, actually, between 15 and 24-year-olds is 60.9%. Between 25 to 34-year-olds is 40.6%. That's 8.1 million people unofficially unemployed or officially unemployed. 345,000 jobs lost in Q1. They have expanded unemployment at 43%. The youth unemployment continues to rise. When I was out there, I remember it was this college student that had like double majors or something crazy. On the side of the road with a sign said, I'm looking for a job. And then that went viral, and the government was embarrassed by it, so they ended up getting this person a job. And when I went out there, I had a podcast at the top of the tallest building in South Africa. And it was with 3 students. Each one of them had a really great major. One was in biochemistry. One was in mineralization or mineralogy or whatever it was back then. And I remember thinking like, these are very intelligent majors for nation building, but there's no opportunities at all. So they're going to college and getting this education, but there's nowhere to land. You understand me? And so when you look at the context, this was in 2019, right? Now, when we're looking at South Africa, that's only gotten worse since then. So they're doing what a lot of these places do, where you start blaming the foreigners. You're not blaming the tech and the mining companies that are in there and the finance companies, right? When you go out there, you still go see Coca-Cola, right? You're going to see all these companies, but what is their investment into these regions? And then that goes into the government relationship with Coca-Cola, or you're forcing them to do investment, because how do you have a huge corporation here, but then surrounding area looks poor as hell, right? And so if they're not forcing them to say, man, you have to take a percentage for the development of these communities and job creation, right, and the investment, then it also goes back onto the government themselves. Right? And that's for, like, when you really go throughout Africa, you see so many issues and like so much bullshit that's messed up that can be fixed by just having better people in power. Right? Like people that actually care. The corruption is all-time high. Right? And so I feel like what our power that we have as, cultural architects, as people that can push narratives, is saying that, look, we will bring tourism to your country, but here is the things that we want for this. Like we don't want to drive past some of the poorest neighborhoods in the world and then go to our nice lush hotel and then charge these fees because you know that we have some money. Like, no, part of this tourism fee needs to go into the development of these areas, right? And then we need some sort of transparent way to track that tax as well.
Speaking of tourism, I have a question for you. Africa is now experiencing its highest year of tourism ever in African history. As a Black American, what do you feel, or what do you think that the streaming production that I did earlier this year? What do you think, or what do you feel when you see that, from not having? Obviously, you're well traveled and you're an educated man, but for the average Black American, what do you think that did for them in terms of their idea of Africa?
Well, before I answer that, let me kick some of this ritual cacao, which is a heart opener as well, so I can answer that question from the right place.
Okay. Of course.
Very dark chocolate with the cordyceps. You just gotta let that savor. Oh, God, it's good. That's good right there. So, first of all, that was the most important production in modern African history. As somebody who has traveled to Africa since 2018, or was that 2017, 2018, one of them. when I first went over there, I did a diaspora trip. I went to the Caribbeans. I was in Jamaica. I spent almost a month there. I went up to the Sovereign Lands, the Nani Maroon Lands. I went up there to the Bobo Shanti tribe. I visited there. I went and prayed and sat with them, and they let us document everything. You know, I went to some of the sulfur springs. Like we spent a lot of time there. Then we went to London, and we went to Parliament, right? And we had a delegation there that was in representation of, you know, the diaspora. And then, of course, South Africa, and that was off the heels of doing a tour in America. And what I was trying to gather was the problem, right? So I can speak towards the solution from a level of experience, right? And not just observation. And from there, what I did realize is that there's our lack of awareness, number one. Like, there's so many people that say they Pan-African, never been to Africa, right? Which I don't really believe in myself, because I don't think you actually understanding what you're promoting, right? And with that, it's like you're really just repeating what you think is right, right? But you don't actually have experience in it. You know, it's the same thing with people that think that they're like pro the people, but you don't go in these neighborhoods where the people exist. You never connect with them. But when you go to Africa and you have a deeper experience, spiritual experience as well, in a lot of places, you know, you realize what needs to be seen and what needs to be shown in a way that it needs to be narrated, right? The imagination of people outside of Africa on what's on the inside of Africa is very low, because when I went to Uganda, I would have never known that's the most beautiful place on earth.
Right.
I would have never known that in a million years, right? Because that is not the brand of Uganda. I'd never known that they were so close to the equator and I could meditate there and eat the best fruit with the most dense nutrient because it's closest to the sun, right? I would have never known those things with that high volcanic soil.
You had the
right,
avocados there, the bananas there. It's like crazy.
Everything was amazing.
Papaya, watermelon.
That I was explaining to the Minister of Tourism, like, you know, if I properly document this, you probably get tens of thousands of black people to come here. We're looking for good food, and y'all have all the good food. They're like the Wakanda of good food. You know, like, we want to come here, ground, and regulate ourselves. But I say all of that because when I looked at what I've been trying to do over the last, you know, almost 10 years now, I seen Speed do that version of that in like 1 month's time. And it was so beautiful because I see a generation that won't grow up with the disdain of Africa, of looking at Africa through the lens of a charity as well, right? Because when we grew up, we would see the Somalians on TV and the Ethiopians so-called starving and things of that nature, and we would look at it as a charity case. We grew up in a hood where the negative stereotype of the African booty scratcher was on everybody's tongue when you thought of an African. You understand me? And now we're in the new media phase where we get to share what narratives, what needs to be exposed, and what needs to be brought awareness to, which also gives us the ability to change these things, right? And I think what Speed did and what that production did was there was a level of intentionality. Every single place that was there, like the moment in De Beers when everybody learned about the diamonds in Africa, right? When you go get cocoa buttered up by some of the most beautiful women on the planet, we like, why am I going to Pasty Paris? You understand me? Looking at Sarah's when I could be looking at Sierra Leone's. You know what I'm talking about? So you realize, like, man, I've been wasting my time. Like, everybody is out there in Paris for Fashion Week. Paris is cool, don't get me wrong. It's like cool architecture and stuff, but it's dry. Food is still better than America, I'll give them that. But they're still colonizers, you understand me? And it's not like, say, hey, go to Africa because we want you to just switch over. It's more so saying, let's develop a space out there. And what he showed us is all of the places to be seen, the places to be protected, the people that existed out there. He showed us the power of this new creator economy, right? Not even just Africa, but the Caribbeans, right? Like expanding people's palate when it comes to the taste of culture, when it comes to food, when it comes to dance, when it comes to community. Like, that's better than any artificial intelligence development that we can ever get. He showed us Earth. He showed us the humanity of Earth, and he showed a little black boy being respected across the planet Earth. For what? For being himself. Speed is respected because he is the little black boy with swagger. You understand me? That can travel around the world, and presidents and emperors and kings will greet him when he go there. For what reason? Because he's a young black man. If we're being honest, right? Not because he's an athlete, not because he's a scientist, as he's an engineer. What makes Speed special is that he's a young black man, because he streams his life as a young black man. And he's showing also freedom to the world, expression to the world. We've been caged in on what we can and cannot do. That is not a young man representing survival mode. It's mostly what these young black boys that's dying in these hoods in America, that's the life they wish they could live, right? But they've been stuck in a rat cage called the ghetto because it's been an experiment to keep the black mind stuck. And he's showing us the opposite of what freedom looks like. That's what I've always tried to do in my representation of why I travel and why I show these places. And him having that same torch as he holds it up for a generation, just because more so his curiosity. Like he's open to learning. He is genuinely curious, as a young mind should be, to want to know things, right? Oh, what is this for, right? That shows the rest of the world how to engage, not just with the president, but what about the people that's in the streets, right? The poorest person in Africa would get the same respect as the most powerful person in Africa, right? That's beautiful to watch because he's demonstrating, and that also goes from when he first started, he had a lot of troubles towards his name. That's the grace that I mean. You give a man a grace and you see what he can become, right? And so I love the whole story of Speed because I think he gets it. I love to see him traveling with his father, right? And I love to see when his eyes buck open when he see them beautiful women, you understand me, dark-skinned women around the world. He like, what is this? It's like you done discovered a new planet. You understand me? And now the young men are looking at that, not saying that when we go rich, we go brownie. No disrespect to him, but no, I want to see these young black men with black women. I'm going to keep it a buck. I want to see that wealth path. I'm completely in alignment with Dr. Umar when we talk about the passing down of wealth, right? Because family is intentional. It is a structure in which wealth can transfer through. So who you pick as your mate ain't just about love is love. No, love is power. Love is wealth. Love is a system. And so if you do not define it, then it is left to be defined by how you feel, right? And so I just, that goes into another part of it, but that's all the feelings and ideas that come up when I think about the experience that the world is having while going through the experience of Speed, and now athletes and entertainers and everybody is following that blueprint. And that's beautiful.
That's what I want to hear.
Hey, man.
That's why it's done. And I want to just say, shout out to Tiffany, his mom, shout out to his father, Darren Sr., shout out to Ames, Rudy, 100% shout out to Rudy. Rudy is the big Ghanaian brother that you see with him, who's his bodyguard and is really like, yo, Africa, Africa, Africa on his head. And now he's just like, I'm Ghanaian. Shout out to Leon. Shout out to Kwan. Shout out to Ames, like creative genius. Shout out to Mason. Shout out to Slips, Daryl, Anthony, Sydney, Tyler. Shout out to Che, who helped me to produce the last Caribbean tour. And then shout out to Alvin, who helped me to produce the first Africa tour, because I think we're creating a paradigm shift from this idea that Africa is full of starving children with swollen bellies and flies around their mouth to there's a science museum and an AI center in Ethiopia. There's Nairobi is one of the most beautiful cities in Africa. We took him to the Voodoo temple, the Vodun temple, and showed him at the stadium that Vodun is not scary, but actually it's just spirituality. Him going to Egypt and seeing the disfiguration of the Sphinx and the different statues that were missing their noses, him learning all of these things that he's learning is reprogramming the minds of our young people. And where we're basically now taking what was once weaponized social anthropology to manipulate human psychology for bad or for low vibration, we're now actually taking this same anthropology and we are using it to raise vibration. And I saw Black Americans crying. I saw Black Brazilians crying because they were like, hang on, that person looks like my cousin. and they're living in a normal house and they're sharing a meal. Just basic human things where they thought that if you go over there, you're going to get disease, you know? I was speaking yesterday with Brother Vic Mensa about Ebola and telling him about the fact that it was patented. It was invented. There is a patent on Ebola. It is called patent, look it up, it's called patent CA2741523A1. CA2741523A1. And invented is used to describe that. It was awarded in 2010. I think 2008 they put it in. They've really just got it in 2021, but it was awarded in 2010 and to the Tulane University and the US Biowarfare Research Company. And it's just very interesting how Ebola only turns up where minerals are. The same thing with originally AIDS, and you should watch a documentary called The Origin of AIDS, and West Nile virus, and all of these things that now, yellow fever virus, like a lot of people want to go to Africa, you know, but they're like, I don't want to get the vaccine. I don't want to get injected, right? And there should be their sovereign choice as to what they want to do with their bodies or what they don't want to do with their bodies, right? But the fact of the matter is that I've traveled across Africa for the last 15 years and I've never met anybody with yellow fever. But I've met a lot of people who were very hungry. I've met a lot of people who are brilliant. I've met a lot of people who need their road fixed, but I haven't met anybody who's got yellow fever yet.
I met someone with jungle fever.
And the fact of the matter is that when him and his team wanted to come to Africa, they got on the phone to Shaka. They didn't get on the phone to any normal person who is just trying to sell Coca-Cola or any of that stuff. They get on the phone to me, who geeks out on African history and African culture. And now we've got 120 million views in a month and 2 billion plus impressions. We've created the biggest streaming tour for Africa in human history. And now Africa's having its biggest tourism year. We are now reprogramming and reshaping and expanding the minds of these children, where a lot of people, whether it's in the Caribbean or it's in Africa, millennials and above, they were like, who is this? And why is everybody losing their minds? But they don't realize that this brilliant young man is actually the Michael Jackson of young people right now. Young people are on their phones every single day, on their iPads. I was in the car yesterday with my nieces. I think they're like 6 and 9 years old. And I was like, oh yeah. I've just been doing this thing, and I've been producing for this young man called Speed. They started losing their mind, and their mum was like, I didn't even know about him, right? So there's this generational gap that's happening, where now what we can do using these platforms without having to go through conventional media, which has a editor which takes things out and puts things in and brightens things and tells the wrong history, we now actually have our own media and our own platforms, and we have teams of people who actually just want to tell the truth. So where Bob Geldof was saying, you know, Live Aid and Ethiopians are all starving, Speed is now saying Ethiopia is the most futuristic city in Africa that I've been to. And we now get to represent the true history of Africa, which for me is the most powerful thing as a Pan-African, being raised, like, it makes me feel emotional, being raised where the first book I'm reading is Malcolm X. The first man I'm learning about is Marcus Garvey. The first example of religion I'm learning about is Coptic religion, Coptic Christianity, where I'm seeing brown angels, and then going into a school system and everybody's just shitting on us the whole time and telling us that we ain't shit and trying to define our standards of beauty to the fact that now we have all of these women and men who are getting surgeries to basically try and look more African, but their idea of African is basically the caricature of African, where you even have white men. The head of Estee Lauder, the cosmetic company, died yesterday because he injected lip fillers and chin fillers and cheek fillers and forehead fillers or whatever these fillers, and it wound up in his lung and it killed him. And now you got all these women going to Brazil, going to Colombia, going to these places to get these BBLs, to get all of these things happening. You got men getting male BBLs, like that is a thing that's happening now. Yeah. You're getting all of these things happening so that people can try and be more validated and better accepted, where as you just made the point, if you're just your true authentic self, you can be celebrated for it. No, not everybody is going to get the same treatment as him because he's got a camera and a platform, and he's very charismatic and he's very intelligent. But being your authentic self is the closest that you can be to God.
Right. Well, I mean, we again, there's like, when I get out there, I get that kind of love and treatment and appreciation. So we can also open those doors for those pathways to happen for the average person as well. Because I think that, I oftentimes think about my experience and know that's not everybody's experience, which is why I don't push my experience as like this is going to be a universal thing. If I'm coming to the airport and they let me in on a private side, I'm not saying that, my experience was great. Why? Because the president said let us in on a private. You're not going to get that. But you can start.
You're not going to get racism, at least.
Right. I would definitely hope not. But when what I think is understood, and you have to go where you are valued. And if I'm talking to creators specifically, right, there's this concept about new media, where new media is not more so about content, it's about infrastructure. When you're somebody like iShowSpeed, his core asset is attention, right? And how that attention can be converted into commerce, right? And like for my core asset would be meaning, right? And translating that meaning, right, into movement or into economy. And these creators are economies. When iShowSpeed goes somewhere or Kanye West goes somewhere, the economy
moves there,
benefits, right? And what's happening is that the you have to appreciate the new generation of media as economies if you really want to understand how to interact with them, and y'all can both get value. iShowSpeed is not just attention, but it's also the new layer of entertainment where these kids, every second they're spending watching him, they're not watching any other brand on the planet Earth.
Right.
So the time that he has with them, he has now captured the attention of the youth. That's cartoons, that's movies, that's brands, that's anything you can think of. I have their attention.
But now it's culture that I want to show them.
Exactly. And guess what? My media company is streaming it. My touring company is streaming it. Do you want to do business with us? If we then go look at the economy of that tour, right, and saying how much opportunity has it brought, right, which is the greater tracking to where those countries can then take that report and be like, okay, now we have a check for you to come over here because we understand the economic benefit, right, of you as a new media creator coming to our space, right, and benefiting the GDP. Damn near creating jobs, creating new creators. Every time you go somewhere, there's a new Africa Speed or there's somebody.
I can't give away too much because obviously I'm involved in the inner workings of everything. But from my understanding, he is the first man to go over to Africa and spend more than $1 million of his own money to just show love. He's the first since Bob Marley. Damn. The last person that did that was Bob Marley. Damn. So where people are trying to downplay him and say that he's not, why are people watching him and what are they doing and et cetera, and just hating, just general hating, right? There's only been one other man, from my understanding, from America or from the Caribbean or from the West, who's black and has been over to Africa and spent more than $1 million of his own money to just show love. And for me, that is very important. Shout out to Henry, by the way, his number one bodyguard or his closest personal bodyguard, and shout out to Chucks as well. Now what we are seeing is let me use a metaphor. We are now seeing streams of consciousness. As we used to bathe ourselves in rivers to get clean, we're now seeing streams of consciousness through digital media, cleaning our minds of the fuckery that has been created as to our image of Africa. And where Africa's losing up to $3 billion a year because of negative media, we're now washing that away and it's coming back, and Africa's now having its biggest ever visitors for tourism. So I think it's successful. I think that you can't say anything apart from it's successful.
No, it's successful, it's beautiful, and this is what happens when you have new creator-led institutions where you become the new media companies, the universities, the communities, the marketplaces, the events where The content is just there to help you build trust with a community that identifies with a creator that's connected to an infrastructure that becomes an institution, right? And so you cannot downplay with the Kai Cenats of the world and the EYLs of the world, the 19 Keyses and the Trappers and all these other people who build out ecosystems that's connected to it, right? It's literally you're looking at the development of new institutions, and I think that if we're smart as a culture, right, and everybody needs to stop just looking, and they need to understand what they're looking at, right? Once you understand what you're looking at, if I can travel the world, right, and we've done 2 world tours by our own companies, right, and every time we go,
and you actually went to Africa,
yes,
because Africa is in the world.
Come on now, we just spoke in Nigeria, and we gave away money to the students, right, because Supermind, you understand me, sponsored that one. Every time we went somewhere, we gave away money to the different schools. Sponsoring electricity is hard to not want to give when you go to these places. From orphanages in Uganda, right, to Ghana, to the kids at University of Lagos. I did a keynote there. And we also had mentored those kids beforehand to help them develop their business plans. And then we gave away a grant to the winners. So when we go there, we want to create impact everywhere we go. But we also went to Amsterdam, went to the Netherlands, we went to Rotterdam, visited the black communities there. You know what I mean? Organized and brought them together. And they like, this is the first time we've ever really had somebody that we would consider, if you will, pro-black, but in person, right? Typically, they have the experiences online. We did Bermuda's first financial literacy conference, and we're doing it again this year. Right, this is real impact. You're talking about thousands of people showing up.
I need to pull up to that.
Yes, we need you there. We go to London. You understand me? We got almost 1,000 people, and we had to find a venue in like 4 days. It was ridiculous, and we had to like overspend on some stuff. But we do it for the people, right? When we go to all of these places around the world, and we have thousands of people show up, the world watches,
right?
But who understands what they're looking at?
Right.
Once you understand what you're looking at, you're saying, wait a minute. How is he even able to do this, right? If we are not starting with the institutional backing and credibility, then it is completely based on the trust that we have with the people who show up.
Reputation.
Then it's saying that, okay, well, if you're doing this by yourself, what could you do if there was also investment into the development of this as an institution?
Bro, we have been saying this since 4 years ago. Since the last time we sit down, I've seen Keys in this amazing space, and Keenan, shout out to Keenan. But if you are to put $2, $3, $4 million into the hands of thought leaders and people that actually are concerned about their people, you're not going to see them pulling up in Rolls Royces. You're going to see them pulling up new studios.
I mean, we might. Depends on how much money.
I mean, he might. I ain't gonna do that.
I didn't want to say that just in case.
But what I'm saying is,
in the future, I ever get a Rolls Royce, they gonna pull up the clip.
But what I'm saying is like, that is why you need to come and sit down and speak to us in Atlanta. I think we should speak at InvestFest again. But why is it that you have people who are collectively watching this? They all know you, right? Or they all know me. They know one of us, right? And still, till this day, there hasn't been a single person that's come and sat down and said, hey, here's a check, and we need you to continue to shape and create value, wealth generation, businesses in X, Y, Z. But I'm saying like 2026, where's the check? It's time to bring the check. I've just shown you guys, and he's been showing you guys for how many years, the amount of value that we can generate for African consciousness and Afro-Caribbean consciousness and Black American consciousness. Just clip this. Just in 1 month, the amount that we can do more than any single corporation or a conglomerate of corporations has done ever in history. Well, we can do it in a month.
Increased spending, right? So you're looking at job creation, number one. Right, you also looking at the reskilling, especially because we don't just do entertainment, we do edutainment. You understand me? So we have a really good time. But when we go to the Royal Albert Hall, and we had it sold out in London a few years ago, we were the first to, well, I was definitely the first to give a breakdown about AI to the culture, to make sure that we're ahead of that, because we're trying to skill the next generation with what's necessary, right? And making sure that we're ahead of the adoption for the culture, right? And then you're looking at commerce, right? So the ability to be able to also get access to audience that you normally cannot get, but then seeding that trust. And we working with brands that we actually trust makes sense. When you want to see increased tourism, it's not just having the baddies there, you understand me, with a few Instagram clips. who can actually connect meaning to these places, right? And storytell and distribute the clips. You understand me? So now you have storytellers and you have these media companies, because you're not hiring a creator. I'm not a creator. I'm an economy, right? And you're saying, okay, how can we do business with you as an economy? What trade are we doing with you? Right? And so as long as you're giving the access, we have the skill sets and the know-how. That's really our moat, is our trust that we have with the people, right? When you have to buy trust, you have to continue to spend and keep trust. We have trust because over time we've built this in front of the people. You understand me? And so every minister of tourism should be reaching out to us for every one of these spaces. When we go to Bermuda, we're doing business with the Ministry of Tourism. We're doing business with the tourism, because they know that we can tell the stories, help the hotels get booked, help flights get booked, help people see the story of Bermuda and what's beautiful about this place, do historical breakdowns on the history of Bermuda, where I done learned things about it I never knew. Right now people are connecting to these places and they like, I need to go. I need to be in this place where Keys stood at, where Shaka stood at, where Speed was at, where EY, all these different places. Don't just watch. If you're watching, understand what's happening, right? And say, okay, what's the business layer behind it? Because when we over-romanticize, we under-industrialize, right? And so we need to also say, if we speak the language of business people who can actually write checks, you have to tell them what the outcome and the benefit is going to be, right? You want to be the smartest person that ever been in your position, then you need to invest in new media. Right? These are creator-led institutions. So it don't even matter if you consider yourself pro-black or pro-whatever. It's saying that this is actually good economics. Right? Let the person that is leading the charge be whatever they are, and then let you help charge them up, because it makes sense. Right? It don't matter how the people get to Bermuda or how they get to whatever island or whatever country. They got there because somebody connected them, right? And now there's a narrative in their head that they want to live out. They want to see themselves meditating at the equator.
Write me my check. It is time that you write me my check, because yesterday's price is not today's price. You can see the things that we have done. You can see the things that we have done. You can see the things that we are doing, and you're going to see the things that we are going to do. Write me my check. You can come and see me and Keys in Atlanta. We're going to do more work together. You can come and see us in Ethiopia. Come and travel with us. Why is it that I'm sitting here telling you to write me my check? The reason being is because charity is not sustainable. And we've been doing this for free for many, many, many years. It's time that that is done, and actually we can monetize it, because if you're looking at new media, for instance, you're looking at a whole new economy that you don't fully understand yet. You don't fully understand all of the equipment that's required, all of the production that's required, all of the managing that's required of this economy. You don't understand it. You don't understand this new media. You're still reverting to the old media that's not quick enough online. Right. Your cameras are old. Where is our streamer university in Ghana and in Nairobi? Why are you not turning this resource-based economy into a digital economy that also has resources? Right. Because at this time, right now, you have an African nation you have African nations and an African continent that is still running to China to beg for a loan, still running to Europe to beg for a loan. And thank God the Prime Minister of Barbados is doing amazing things in Barbados, including creating new apps and including getting off the loan system, including making Barbados a republic, making Rihanna a national hero, and stopping us from bowing down to Euro-Westphalian status quo dominant philosophy, because we are tired of it. And this brilliant man here, 19 Keys, cut the camera to him, you can just do my voice. This brilliant man here now, he's had no scandals. He's had no illicit children. He's had no violent attacks. He hasn't been inebriated in public. He hasn't punched anybody up or done anything crazy to anybody. He hasn't scammed anybody. He hasn't killed anybody. He has not done anything wrong. And from what I can see, he's doing everything that he can possibly do right. I'm not saying that he's perfect, but he's doing the best that he can with discipline and with a community that is backing him. But that community needs to continue to grow, because there's so much energy and attention put on sports. There's so much energy and attention put on the clubs, commodity, who is sleeping with who. And what you need to do is start to invest in your leaders before your leaders leave us.
So there you have it, people. I think that new media is the one thing that we should be focused on the most. I think we should be investing in production, right? I think that we should be investing into the ecosystems, that we have. I think that what we have is like, I have a great expert network, right? Like if you want to go, you can pick any country in the world, and if they're looking to get into AI adoption, I'm pretty sure I can pull the top 5 experts when it comes to that to make sure that they're doing that with a level of integrity and they're doing that correctly, right? But when it comes to world building, brand, storytelling, like we have those already existing in our ecosystems. So then we have our own media systems and institutions and communities and reputations and distribution platforms, right? But we have a disproportionate ability to tell the story from a place that people actually care about, right? It's not just about viral moments, it's about meaning, but we also understand the value of attention as a commodity. But we also understand the cognition and how to actually tell the story in a way where people connect to it and it's not something they distracted by and then they leave. How do you get them caught up into a funnel to where that actually turns into, right, a product, that turns into a sale, that turns into a visit, that turns into a hotel stay, that turns into a new entrepreneur on your island or in your country because they've now been educated in ways to build infrastructure for themselves. When Africa becomes online and all the creators start really using the internet to start making money, who is going to be there to help them build out the infrastructure? When I went to Uganda and I seen large media companies, but they needed our frameworks on actually how to utilize this. Multi-million-dollar companies, but they don't really know what they're doing. And so instead, stop watching, get involved. We are experts at what we do at this point. You understand me? I've been podcasting for the last 10 years, right? I'm one of the top in the world when it comes to new media, right? And putting together our own tours, traveling around the world where thousands of people are showing up. And we are the ones directly in conversation with the venues and doing the marketing, the branding, the sales, the funnels, the setup, the branding, the video editing, the clipping, right? Like the connections and networking to a high extent and level. When I walked up to Bloomberg and I was able to speak at their Black History Month, that's because of my reputation. I just was able to walk into the building. They like, we need you to say something. You understand me? That's a level of understanding of what this new media is. When I'm able to talk directly to a president, he has his first podcast because he understands like, oh, this is important. I'm getting an opportunity, not just giving one. Right? Like that is the importance of like respect the two-way relationship. Understanding the building. If you could watch CNN, CBS, Netflix, and all of them develop in public, right? That's what you're looking at when you're watching these new so-called creators. You're watching new economies built. You're watching the new Teslas. The reason that Elon Musk was smart is because he bought the attention engine. He said, let me buy Twitter if I can use it to manipulate the market. What happens when I buy the thing that is manipulating the market? I own it then. Now I can become the first trillionaire because I can use this to put somebody in the president's office. I can go get the most valuable data in the world after I start this Doge. And then once I leave there, I'm going to be a trillionaire. You don't think these things are interconnected and he don't understand that power? You need to understand the power. Stop looking at the aspiration of the outcome and understanding the infrastructure that led to it.
And he took out a loan to do it.
Come on now. So anyway, this has been your high-level conversation. I want y'all to join us in our trip to Ethiopia. It's going to be my first trip going to a country that has never been colonized. I'm looking directly forward to it. It's a very spiritual journey, I believe, as well. I'm looking towards that good food. I'm looking for some of that Ethiopian coffee. Definitely looking to do some trade as well and some business and also bring more people there after I share my experience. So we're looking for highly aligned individuals that want to come with us, not just anybody. We want the right people. You understand me? So if you're
You will be screened.
If you're looking for a great experience and to travel with the right people, because when I travel, I really travel. You know what I mean? Like the experiences that we have, the access that you're going to be getting, I'm going to be honest, it is a level of privilege because everybody can't get it. You feel me? When I go to Egypt, I can have somebody call a guy and then clear out the pyramid for me. You know what I'm saying? Like we got that kind of, I'm just saying we got that kind of juice. You know what I'm talking about? So anyway, go to 19keys.com/Ethiopia and get your tickets or at least apply so that we can see you there with us. We'll be going to Abbas.
We're going to Addis Ababa. We're going to Entoto. We're going to Arba Minch, which means 40 springs. So there's actually hot thermal springs there. We're going to go thermal springs. We're going to feed the largest white lion in Africa. Okay. We're going to do things that you only see on...
We're not going to that massage parlor, though.
No, we ain't going to that massage parlor. We're going to be doing things that you only see on Nat Geo. It's time for black people to do that stuff. Afro Geo, right? And also I would say... It's the first time that I've invited a group of people to come travel with me since Egypt, since Kemet. So it's like naturally, you know,
I don't think I've ever invited a group of people to travel with me.
We've done Kemet, and now we're doing Abyssinia,
Right.
Kush. That whole area, we're starting there, but we'll eventually get to Congo and Uganda and different places. Come with us to Stone Mountain. I want to see you outside because dirty belly boy do the right thing, you know. You have to work out. You can't be a man and look pregnant. I'm sorry. I'm just saying.
You can't be a fat man and a black man. You got truth.
You gotta clean out this colon. Sort out yourself, because while you listen to a revolutionary conversation and you're sitting in front of revolutionaries,
have a revolutionary.
Are you
body.
ready for that yourself?
Come on now.
Me and Keys ran up this thing the other day.
Yeah.
Nice, cool, little sweat,
And
good.
I'll be honest, he was doing hella extras. They stopping every 5 seconds and doing push-ups. I ain't signed up for this. It's some swole brother talking about y'all doing too much. I said, brother, this is my event. First of all, calm down.
I'm saying to everybody who's watching this, just go to the gym. Just go work out. Just go and start this thing, because you cannot have a super mind unless you have a super body.
And I work out on this every day.
Right.
I did the whole hike on this, and at the end we had coconuts. You understand me? But beforehand, this is all I had. You feel me? This is all I had.
So I'm saying that just to say, look after yourself. Health is wealth and not much else, and it cannot be organic and be seedless.
Yeah. Peace to the family. This has been your high-level conversations. Make sure you sign up for our Patreon so you can get behind the scenes, and make sure you tap into Zion, our digital nation platform, where we are coordinating outside the algorithm. My goal is to live an algorithm-free existence with highly coordinated individuals that are building together. So we're doing a lot of great things. Shout out to my brother Antoine Digital. We do 2 live AI sessions per month. So when you get your passport, you get access to that. So it's about 6 sessions to help you build out your agents, to help you build out your AI platforms, to help you with entrepreneurship and business. And then within a high-level university as well, that's where I'm teaching the mastery of communication, leadership skills, cognitive wealth, which is our assessment that we created to make sure that people are living in alignment with the way that their mind works. So we're also going to Bermuda as well, and we're going to have a retreat with about 50 people, so make sure you pull up. I want everybody to pull up to Bermuda. It's going to be very special. We're going to have some concerts as well out there, and I'm working directly with them to make sure that you all can see the island. It's a very beautiful place. The fish that I had out there was amazing. He might not have no fishy, but they had good fruits out there as well, and good salad. So if those who are looking for the greatest lettuce, come through. At the same time, man, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and don't be a sucker. Be high level. Peace to the gods. Go to asupermind.com. So next time you're watching this, you're sipping at the same time.
19 keys, and this is high level conversation. Tap in with the God. It's 19 keys, the 19 keys. The execution of knowledge is power. Teach me how to be a God. From a boy to a man, and ultimately back to the natural state of being and to a God.